Men, 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 manly men, men. Men, 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 manly men, men. We're back for another episode. Our listeners, Dusty, we seem to be making a go of this.
Yeah, no, this is good, man. I've gotten some pretty good feedback on it, and yeah, it's been fun. That's the main thing. It's just been fun hanging out with you and talking shit.
So, I'm just want to, personally apologize for, the delay in a new episode not being available on Sunday, March 27th. I just had some personal family matters that I needed to attend to, and I just want everyone out there knowing that, Dusty and I have, full-time jobs, outside of this podcast, so we're doing this because we feel it's a duty to the community, and that we're really hoping that other people can get benefits from our experience, like what I said in episode 1. So, Dusty and I have had extensive conversations about the content, and our goal is to release new material on a consistent basis, and we really try to aim on hitting a weekly basis, but obviously life happens and it's sometimes unexpected, and from time to time we're just not going to be able to. So I appreciate everyone that's listening right now, sticking with us, that you commit your time to listening to this. But at the end of the day, I think I speak for both of us, Dusty, when I say our family commitments come first.
Yeah, 100%. Yep, families first.
So I really felt like Dominic Toretto.
Who's
out of Fast and the Furious, Vin Diesel's character.
Oh, okay.
like Dominic Toretto, family comes first. But it's been. I feel like we're back at episode 1, Dusty. We had the Family Day weekend off, and unfortunately, we weren't able to record last week. So, what have you been up to, man?
Mostly just family stuff, honestly. My son's winding down his hockey, so a lot of that. Even last week, remember we were trying to hook up, and I was just I've got hockey 3 times. I had three hockey events in 2 days and a baseball tryout. So it's that's what it's been, and it's just winding down now. So it'll get where we get outside and do some actual fun stuff. Yeah.
It's interesting. I was talking to my buddy Bruins. He's retired in Florida, but he comes from Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm hoping to get him on the podcast at some time. So Bruins, if you're listening to this, I hope you come on, you old Kent. But we were having a conversation during the week about the commitment junior hockey takes, and I said to him that because of the climate in BC, there isn't a lot of outdoor ponds available, and that a majority of the cost is in rink time.
No, exactly. And in Surrey, in Cloverdale, the mayor canceled the new arena. So we only have one sheet of ice actually at the actual arena that we're out of. So they have to rent from other places. And so the costs are even higher because of that.
Do you feel that people are gouging, Dusty? People are gouging ice time, or are they being fair?
Well, it might just be the limited availability. I mean, Cloverdale is a big, Eastern Surrey is a big area. It has a big association, and the city's basically, has other obligations, or not even obligations. They have, I know the mayor here wants to put a canal down King George Highway. All it's going to be is dead hookers, druggies, and needles in that thing. So I don't know why he would change his commitment to the arena that the ground was already being leveled out, and he canceled it basically, and leaving all these kids with limited resources, right?
I thought I'd heard something, and maybe I'm way off, that the mayor of Surrey liked spending money on community areas, but because it kept the kids out of trouble, they were able to skate, or they were able to play football, or they were able to be on a jungle gym or anything like that.
Well, yeah, I don't understand it, because it's such, to me, they were undercutting it anyways. They were only going to have 2 sheets. I personally think we need a 4-sheet rink in Surrey, in Cloverdale. Somewhere around 176 and Fraser would be good. But, they canceled it, and there's no plan. It's going to take 2 years probably to find another place and then build. So we're 2 years out from even having another arena at minimum, right?
So what, they had land? Are you saying that the land's now sold?
No, so the land was at the Cloverdale Fairgrounds. You can see where it's been leveled out. There was a marshy type thing in there, and they have the set for Smallville in there. That was allotted for the new arena, and they've basically canceled it or delayed it, and it's just there's no work being done on it now. And you know, these if you want to get these kids off their computers and doing actually doing stuff that's useful as far as like skating and being active, like this thing should be prioritized and be being built right now.
I agree with you 100%. Did you play hockey as a youngster?
No, when I was a kid, I mean, my dad was the main income earner. He worked graveyards, so we only had one vehicle, so I didn't end up playing hockey. That was sort of the excuse. Or not even an excuse, the reason for why I didn't play. So my main sport was baseball.
The reason why I asked that is because when I was talking to Bruins, and the few times that Mama G has taken me out, like, skating, my ankles get so sore. Like super sore. And so I was talking to Bruins and I'm like, what's up? Is that just like conditioning? And he's like, oh yeah, that's totally like you've got to be skating like a few times a week that your conditioning increases in your ankles. And he was saying like pre-season to his junior hockey, he was playing like training 5 days a week. And it's just a hard thing for me to comprehend that he's training 5 days a week before the season starts, and then it's only like 2 or 3 days a week plus a game.
Yeah. And this is only a new thing too. Like if you look back at the NHL back in the 70s and 80s, the guys would show up and they were overweight. That's why they had, preseason training. It was actually to get in shape. Now these guys in the higher levels have to be in shape all, 365 days a year. So they come to camp. If they're out of shape, then they might not even make the team, or they get put back down to the AHL, like the lower level. Right? Back in like Guy Lafleur's era, the guys would be smoking on the bench, drinking whiskey,
That's
and now it's like you got to look like a freak, the Ryan Kessler photo that all the women in Vancouver know about. You have to look like that all the time and just be ripped.
Do you think it's more about clubs or even club owners like ensuring that their players are portrayed in a certain light because they are role models to young people?
Well, that's the thing that's changed too. Like back in the old days, as a kid, like my biggest sort of sports idols would be John Elway for the Denver Broncos, Trevor Linden. And obviously Trev is a good role model all over, but I never really thought of what they did in their regular life. Like I know with the Edmonton Oilers, I've heard stories they were freaking doing coke off of hookers' tits and in the plane and stuff, you know what I mean, doing shots and doing all this shit. And I think it was almost like there was almost like this gentleman's agreement between the media and the athletes that you wouldn't talk about shit. There's certain things you could were on the record, certain things were off the record, and it doesn't seem like it's like that now. So these guys have to really watch what they say, what they do, or you get vilified immediately because all these parents are like, well, you're not a good role model to my kid. Well, it's like that's not the athlete's job. In my opinion, it's not the athlete's job, right? To a certain extent. It's
interesting you say that because now it's almost like this is just my opinion, and it's so ignorant. Like, so I know that before saying it, like this is an ignorant comment, but like media training is provided to these juniors or to these people that are newly signing these, regardless of what sport it is, media training is provided because it's almost like the clubs need to be protected against something that someone might say off the record, but then it's on the record to the journalist.
Yeah, that and even just behavior outside the arena in their personal lives. I mean, maybe it's because we're paying them, or the clubs are paying them so much now that now it's elevated. Back in the old days, the guy would make $50,000 in a year. Now they've got this excess money, so now they're targets by females that are going to exploit these guys, try to take advantage of them. So they need training in media. They need training on how to behave outside in the club, when they're out in the world, and everybody's got a camera now too.
Very true. Right? Like basically you've got a supercomputer in your pocket and you can just pull it out and you can, like we were talking about Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah.
You've got that in your pocket now and you've got a camera in your pocket and it's got like 15 gigabytes.
Yeah.
15 like megapixels.
Yeah.
And you can just instantly post it or you can instantly stream.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to tell you now, if I had to choose, like, either having fame or, like, so, like, fame and being rich or being rich and having, like, a private life, I'm going to choose, like, having, like, modest amount of money in a private life over having fame and fortune, because you are right, you're vilified, you're subjected to, you're exploited, because anyone is looking to make a buck.
Yeah. Well, look what happened to Tiger Woods. To me, it was none of my fucking business. Or Kobe Bryant. That was their personal life. Why do I have an opinion? Like, as a regular guy, you had all these, like, Bill Burr does a little skit on this. It's like you have these fat fucks. Oh, it was so horrible. I can't believe it. Dude, you don't even know what it's like to be hit on by a 12. We're not talking about like your 8.5 or a 4 that these guys maybe have a chance at. You're talking about like the tip top of what a guy would look at as a young guy. That's what they're valuing. Yeah, and most of us guys don't understand what it's like to have that level of female come at you. Like, if you all of a sudden you're 20 years old and you have $40 million and you've got Swedish bikini models hitting on you, like your morality might be slighted a little bit. And I like to say I'd hold myself up, and if you're married, obviously, but for me to judge somebody that's in that situation, I've never been in that situation. So I don't know how. I'd like to say I would be on the up and up, but I don't know. You know what I mean?
Look, I 100% do. And it's interesting that you say that, because no one would know how you would act in that position until you're in that exact position. And if you're a rookie, or if you're a greenhorn, or if you don't have a lot of worldly experience, you wouldn't think that these women are coming at you with a preconceived agenda.
Totally. You're all of a sudden now you go from almost a nobody. You've worked your ass off in whatever field you're in, whatever sport, and all of a sudden now you're ultra popular. You've got an entourage that's covering your back. They're like, dude, let's do it. Come on, let's have a fun time. And they don't care because it's not on them. It's not on your entourage that's going to be in the newspaper the next day. It's going to be you. And they're all pumping you up, and then you get alcohol in there and maybe some drugs in there. And like I said, I'm not justifying, but also I'm saying, like, to judge it from my position, how can I do that?
I agree,
Right?
like 100%. So anyway, what Mama G and Bake Boss and Emo Samurai and myself, we went to Edmonton. We went and saw the Outlaws. We went and saw Grandma and Grandpa G. It's a different world in Alberta, man, compared to BC.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting because this was the first trip that we'd gone back to see Grandma and Grandpa G, and I was driving. Generally, Mama G drives because she, in her teen years, grew up in Edmonton. And I kid you not, the roads are like a scene from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, man. Like, I honestly thought that when I was just waiting to see, like, Tina Turner in a metal-clad onesie hanging out the car door, overtaking us on the highway. Like, I'm not shitting you. Like, that's exactly what I thought was going to happen. Yeah, man, the drivers are just absolutely ruthless over there. Like, they're pulling into spaces that aren't there. They're speeding. They're pinballing in and out of traffic. I lost my shit a few times by missing exits on, I think it was like the White Mud, like freeway, or the White Mud. It's something mud.
Huh.
Anyway, like, and Mama G just said to me, like, hun, why are you getting so upset? And it's because I had this preconceived expectation that I should know what I'm doing. I've got Google Maps. I'm Google mapping everything from Grandma and Grandpa G's place to, like, the West Edmonton Mall, and then I miss a turn because it's really not well, like, signed in Edmonton. That's just my own observation.
So you're telling me that there's a place that has worse roads than BC or than Vancouver?
Hands down.
Because I complain about the roads here all the time. Like, there was no pre-planning on the roads here. They're like 20 years behind what they should be.
Yeah, like, it's the deterioration of the roads, like, and I'm assuming it's because they get such a heavier snowfall there, and then I didn't know about the melt.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it snows, and then it's sunny, and then it melts, and then it freezes, and then it snows, and then it's sunny, and it melts, and it freezes. The roads are really deteriorated there, like, and I'm like not talking like deep potholes, but they're just really inconsistent.
Yeah.
And then people just want to get to places.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, you have a big, powerful truck. Like, a lot of guys have that there. Whereas here, it's like, you know what I mean? So everybody's probably driving aggressively and hard because they have the power in their vehicles. Whereas, you know, you probably didn't see a smart car when you were there. You probably didn't see too many Teslas.
No, I don't. Like, just I'm really taking the time to think about it. I don't remember seeing an electric vehicle there or any vehicle that had the OK sticker on it being in the HOV lane. I don't remember seeing one at all.
Have you ever taken your cell phone into a hockey arena? How fast that battery deteriorates? Like, Tesla will not have a market in Edmonton or Winnipeg or right? Like,
no,
you drive around the block and your charge is gone. Right? And everybody on the neighborhood's laughing at you for having such a soft car, but you know, because you need that. I don't know. People like that sound. Just like when we jumped into your truck today, that fucking sound. Like, yeah. It
was funny. Like when I had the old truck and I raced the guy in a Tesla, like he whooped me. Like he really did. Like those things zoom. Like they get so much torque. But like I said to him when I pulled up at the lights and I started talking to him, I said, but your car can't do this, and I rev the engine. He's got no exhaust note.
Yeah,
like nothing. It's just like I'm taking off now.
Yeah,
it's like something out of the Jetsons.
Totally.
So, but man, it is way colder there. Like it is so much colder in Edmonton than what it is in BC. Like I was in minus 29 degrees Celsius, and I ran on the Monday morning of Family Day weekend. It's cold, man, very cold.
Your nose hairs freeze in that temperature, right?
My eyelashes froze over.
Yeah, totally.
Like my eyelashes froze over, man. So, and like normally, if I'm running, say in BC, I can probably run 4.5 Ks if I'm not trying to make a specific time per kilometer, which is generally what I do to push myself. So I could only run 3 Ks, like because of the I'm going to assume it's because of the temperature, right?
Yeah.
And so, like my eyelashes fucking started freezing over. That's how cold. I've got a photo, and I didn't know this at the time, but like actual ice had accumulated on my eyelashes, like just from the moisture. It was so cold. I mean, the air is so cold that when you take a breath, it literally takes your breath away, taking a lung full of air in. Yeah. And like you're running, so you're trying to gasp for air and supply your body oxygen.
Yeah.
It's like this double-edged sword there. So I ended up having to get to a point where I was like, right, Thommo, you're in a bit of shit. Like, you're struggling. So what am I going to do? So on the fly, I said, all right, I'm going to start running 3 street lights, like the distance of 3 street lights, and then I'm going to walk one. And then I'm going to run 3, and I'm going to walk one. And it's honestly, Dusty, I started thinking about the first podcast we did, and you said like it was the same as mountaineering. It's like literally each step you take that you're just concentrating on the next step.
Yeah, exactly. And the cold actually I was just thinking when you were talking about that, I was just thinking about my summit on Rainier. Back in 2012, it was in the minus 20s with the wind chill, and yeah, my face was freezing. My water pack had froze, so I couldn't even get any water. And it was like when it's that cold, it hurts your lungs.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, we learned to buy a buff, like it's like a face covering. That's the only time I wore a face covering was on mountaineering. But yeah, it's like you need something to warm that air, and yeah, that's once you get to that temperature, you've got to limit what you're doing.
It's interesting because on the Sunday when I run, I wore what I would normally wear running in like say -5, and I wore the same clothes when it was about -25, -26 with the wind chill, and just my face was exposed, and I'm just like, you cannot do this again. It is that blistering cold. Yeah. So on the Monday when I ran and it was like -29 with the wind chill, I took a balaclava with me, but I wore a balaclava, and I can't tell you the relief that I felt. Like, you know, so I had my lips chapsticked and, but just having the balaclava so that it was like a barrier to sort of warm the air. Yeah, it was, and even, so when I stopped running, so I ran the 3 street lights, and then I would pull the balaclava down just so I could sort of suck fresh air.
Yeah.
But that balaclava like came in. It really did come in handy. Like having it on my face, just one protecting my face as I was running, because dude, it's just brutally cold.
Yeah.
Like brutally cold. And until you've run that cold, I don't think you really understand how cold it is. Like if we're talking commie units and freedom units, like when you start getting the freedom units in Fahrenheit are almost the same as the commie units, which are metric.
Oh yeah. You're right.
It's
right.
cold.
Yeah, it does
Like
start to even
it's
out. Yeah.
freaking cold. So, but what I took from that experience is that you will be surprised how far you can go and how much you can achieve when you break goals down into smaller bites, which I think is the same thing that you said in episode 1.
Yeah, well, that's exactly just same as mountaineering or hiking or whatever. You don't look at the summit. You look at a distance that's attainable in your mind, where you're like, okay, I can do that. So you take those steps to get to that point. Then you make a new set of steps and say, okay, I'm going to get to that rocky outcropping. I'll get it to there. And same thing, you break it down into smaller pieces where it's attainable, and you're not getting overwhelmed by the whole trip, right? The whole voyage. You just break it into little pieces. I do that quite often in my life. Like when I feel like I'm being overwhelmed, I'm like, okay. And it's not just about physical stuff. It's like, oh man, I got X, Y, and Z to do in my life. Okay, do half of X. Make that your goal. Once you get half of X done, do the other half of X. And then go to Y. Do half of Y. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And one of the things I do at the moment, and I've done it for years now, but Joe Rogan says this a lot, is that at the start of every day or at the previous night, I will make a list of I just call them goals that I want to get achieved for the following day, and I just cross them off as I do them. And so the first thing, it's always to work out. Like whatever I do, the first goal I have of every day is to work out. Like most of my days are, like the average day for me would be I'm going to bed at 9 p.m. at night, right? And then I'm getting up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. That's just what time I get up because it's what I need to do to get stuff done. Now, Mama G's still in bed at that time. Normally, the first thing I would do would be to make my bed, but she's in bed still, so I just get up. I get myself ready and I'm out exercising. And exercising might be a run or it might be a walk. What I try to do at the moment is I try to run the first kilometer and I try to keep to at least under 6-minute Ks. That's what I'm trying to do so as soon as I get out the front door, I set my Apple Watch and I'm running. And I'm trying to run under 6 minutes. Like I ran a PB the other day of 5:22. Was
good, man.
Well, I think it was good, but like I mentioned before in a previous podcast that I was training with this guy that wanted to do a triathlon. I used to be able to run 2Ks in under 9 minutes.
Okay.
Like 4.5 minute Ks. Like to me now, that's when I was 32 and I'm 42 this year. So I was 32. I was like physically fitter.
Yeah.
Like just one, because of age, and two, just because of the work that we were doing. But for me, like a 5-minute 30 kilometer, I'm pretty proud of. Like, and I'm not trying to blitz it. Yeah. I'm just trying to run for the sake of getting my blood. Well, to be honest, I'm trying to get warm. That's the first thing I'm trying to do. Like sure. I do wear running tights, and so the first kilometer I try to run. I'm trying to get between 5 minutes 30, 6 minutes. Then I'm probably walking like 3 kilometers. And I'm trying to keep to at least a sort of sub 12-minute like walking kilometer, and that's just what I do religiously. And so I'm exercising for that first hour, and then between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. when the kids get up, I'm working. So I'm either working on the podcast or I'm working on my day job, let's call it. And then when everyone goes to work or when everyone goes to school, between sort of 9 a.m. and sort of 3:30, well, probably 3 p.m. when the kids get home, if we've got the kids. Like I'm working. Mm-hmm. So I'm working on the podcast, or I'm working in my day job, or I'm taking care of myself, really, to be honest with you. So, but where I'm going at is I try to break the day down into smaller bites. So I'm not looking at everything that I've got to do for the whole entire day. I'm looking at like 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. and then I'm looking at 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then I'm looking at 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and then 12 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, those are the best days to do. Like when you actually write stuff down and check it off, that's the best way to do. When I really have shit to do, I have an app called, I think it's called Clear on my phone. And I can type in everything I need to do. And then you can do different lists. I use it for groceries, all this other shit too. But I do it for like, if I have a day where I'm like, I got to get shit done, I'll go on there and I'll put it all on. And as you do it, you can swipe it off. So it's kind of a cool app because you have it right there on your phone. You're carrying your phone around with you. You can say, oh shit, I still got to do all this stuff. And I'll just check it off as I go. And it's the same thing. It's just making a list. And
I didn't even know there was an app. Like I personally just, maybe I'm just old school and you've seen it. I've got a massive whiteboard in our kitchen dining area and everything goes on it, from a shopping list to what I want to get done to upcoming travel documents, like whatever it is. I know my personality now, and I've probably known it since I was probably early 30s. I'm a very structured person. I should have been in the military. Yeah. I think I would have suited the military well because that's just how my personality developed. But I like the structure of making a list, and I like the structure of crossing it off. And once it's crossed off, I feel this massive sense of achievement.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same thing. Like the app's actually good that way. When I was, one of the first things I said to you when I came over was how much I love that board.
You did say that.
I was like, fuck, that's awesome, because it's always, every time you go in the kitchen, it's there. You have sayings on there, little quotes and stuff. It's awesome, right? Like you go through and you're like, if you have something that's in your mind or you see a quote, you write it on the board. It means something to you. Or there's something you want to do, have daily goals, have long-term goals, have really long-term goals. And then that way, as you do these things, and it's, even if you're not getting some of them done, you're seeing it every single day.
That's my thing. You're seeing it every day. Like Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about setting, like if you had everything that you could have, like where would your life be in 3 years? And then if you didn't have those things, if you were at rock bottom, like where would your life be? And write it down. And that's really what I'm working towards. I do have a personal journal, like a hard copy journal that I need to write this stuff in. But what I like I will personally use mirrors because they're just to me like a whiteboard. If there's something that, like, I'm talking to someone, you and I are having a text message conversation, or I'm talking to someone and I'm like, oh, damn, that's really interesting, or that could be a talking point in the podcast, I'll write it up on that whiteboard so I don't forget it. Because the saying that someone told me once that I always remember, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but it's like the faintest pencil is sharper than the strongest mind. And that's literally saying that it doesn't matter how smart you are, if you are relying on your smarts or your IQ to remember something, the chances are is that you probably won't, but the faintest pencil is always there and you're always able to come back to it. And that's why I like pen and paper. Personally, I like pen and paper, or if I'm reading a book, I want to read an actual book and I want to be able to dog ear the pages and I want to be able to smell it and I want to be able to underline shit.
I am with you on that. Like books, I cannot read, is it Kodo or whatever it is?
Kodo or something like that.
Kudu. Yeah, no, I'm the same as you. I want to smell the book. I want to feel the book. I want to flip the pages. And, just having that tactile experience of having the book in your hand. I've tried to read like the books online or the iBooks. It just doesn't work for me. I don't retain it either. It's weird. It's like I'm still reading words, but it just doesn't retain like it does in a physical book.
Yeah, I don't mind though if I'm in the car, like if I'm going shooting, and I've been shooting hundreds of times by myself, and where I go it's like 2.5 hours door to door from where we are. I'll put on an audio book.
Yeah, audiobooks. Yeah,
no,
yeah,
but
exactly.
I'm just saying. So that is when I try to embrace technology, and I'll listen to a podcast or I'll listen to an audio book. But yeah, other than that, I want to feel like the texture of the pages. I want to be able to read the ink, and when I read, I'm going to be honest, I read by myself, but I read out loud.
Yeah.
And my grade 12 high school teacher told me that you retain information better that way.
Yeah.
Like when you read it out loud to yourself instead of reading it in your mind, because it's forcing you to read every word of the sentence.
Yeah, when you're hearing it, you're hearing your own voice.
You're hearing your own voice.
Yeah. No, that is interesting. That's true though. And I think maybe the thing I was just thinking about this when you were talking, like it's almost like you running, or when I was talking about hiking and making when you have a physical book, you can actually see the ending because you see the whole book, the depth of the book.
Yeah.
And so you can make kind of goals. I'm going to get it to this chapter, and I can see how much the progress has come. So it when you're on a computer, you don't see that the whole book in your hand. You know what I mean?
I do.
Right?
You don't have that physical representation. Like, I prefer to run like in the free world on the road so that I'm constantly moving forward and the scenery's actually changing.
Yeah.
In lieu of running on a treadmill.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, I totally get how some people might be super efficient and they run on a treadmill and they put the golf on or they put the basketball on or the hockey on and they will run. But I prefer to be in the physical world running, actually like physically moving forward in the environment. That's just me personally.
When you're smelling the trees, you know what I mean? You're having the breeze go across your face. It's the exact same thing as the book thing we're saying.
Exactly.
Like that physical experience, yeah.
But like coming from the prairies when we did, like you want to talk about strong women. Like I hope maybe at some stage we get like Grandma G on the podcast because she really is the salt of the earth. She is a total like battle-hardened prairie woman whose mold was broken after they cast her. Like she grew up on a farm. They had to slaughter their own animals if they wanted to eat meat. They had to grow their own vegetables. Like, you know, the neighbor was like, I don't know, like a 10-minute walk away. Like, that's hardcore to me. Like, I think that's allowed those sort of baby boomer people to be more in touch with the reality of what's required to survive in the real world, say, versus a millennial.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So, Dusty, we can't be that big yet regarding the podcast because I still haven't received any correspondence from any charities about us donating our time. Guys, if there's any charities out there, as per our promise on episode 2, like I really want to donate my time. I want to give back to the community and for the greater good. So, you know, please hit us up. Just a follow-up from episode 2, Dusty. I actually heard back from my father's wife regarding my proposed conversation. She got home that day after I spoke to her about the potential conversation with my father, and he was apparently like working in a room on a project, and she got in, had some pleasantries with him before saying that Mama Thommo had told her that myself had COVID once and Omicron once, and all he did was turn to her and say, "Isn't he lucky?" And he left the room. So after 24 years of having no communication with me, and like either way, either myself contacting him or him contacting me, he was then advised that I had been sick, and he just said, "Isn't he lucky?" And so here I was, like talking to Mama T about that. I was out walking, and after she recounted that to me, I literally told her that I had to go because internally I felt unsafe, and I ended the phone call and I just began to run. And I cognitively remember, like, I let myself cry for about 10 seconds. And during that 10 seconds, I got this huge sense of relief. And then I moved through that feeling and I moved on. And I remember feeling this huge emotional weight being lifted off my shoulders because I cognitively knew there was nothing more that I could do for that relationship.
Yeah, then we talked about, my experience I had this week, and I won't get into it, but I had something similar happen as far as like had to cut ties fully with somebody that was, from a relationship that had become toxic to me. And it almost is. It's like, because we talked about it upstairs, I had said, I felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. Like I knew all along it was toxic. It wasn't good for me. And so I can see the same thing with you. It's like, it's like this relief because you've known it all along. Like this isn't good for me. And then once they actually sort of sort of reiterate that it
When you reflected on the conversation,
Yeah,
or the relationship.
yeah, it's like, yeah, you reinforce, when they reinforce that they're toxic to you, and you're like, yeah, I don't deserve this. Me moving on is actually better, even if the things that they say are, hurtful and cut at your heart. It is more of a relief. You're like, yeah, this is what I need to do. Just walk away, because I've done everything I can do as a human being to correct. I've been accountable to the things I do. I've tried to correct the relationship and mend it, but they're still toxic. What else can you do but just shut the door and lock the key and walk away? And it's actually freeing.
Do you know what? I would say not necessarily like lock the door, but you can definitely close it.
Yeah. Okay.
You can definitely close it. And what I would say that it's taken me like a long time, like at least 10 years to do. And I think what you did and what I did was set a boundary. Like you set a boundary with the person in that relationship to say, do you know what? I'm worth more than that.
Totally.
Like I'm worth more than how you are treating me right now. And I understand that you're angry, or I understand that you're frustrated, or you're disappointed, or whatever feeling that it is that you're feeling. Like I do validate that, but that doesn't justify you treating me poorly.
Totally. Like I said to you, I think I grew a backbone. And it's like it's not necessarily like you don't have a backbone with everybody. It's with those people that you really, you're chasing after their love, or...
It's those people that you let in to what they say in...
the Fockers one?
Yeah, like it's Meet the Fuckers, right? But it's called something like Meet the Parents.
Meet the Parents, yeah.
Okay, so the movie it's exactly like that movie with Ben Stiller and Robert De Niro in Meet the Parents or Meet the Fuckers. When you let someone into your circle of trust,
exactly,
like you want to be vulnerable with them, you want them to see the real you, and that's not a weak thing. That's actually a courageous thing. But if someone's careless with that, or if they overstep a boundary, then you have to respect yourself enough to say, what's it costing me to sustain this relationship?
Absolutely. Like I said to you, I think upstairs too, I said they weaponized the vulnerable moments that I entrusted them with. And they used those things that I had let out of my soul to them. And they, like I said, they weaponized it, used it against me. And it's like, when people do that, then you have to know you have to walk away. It's because anyone that really truly loves you would never do that to you. You know what I mean?
I 100% agree. And that's, I forget who said it. It wasn't me that said it, but one of the hardest things in life to learn is to know when to keep going and when to walk away from something. And it's one of those things, like with those interpersonal relationships, when someone is in your circle of trust, how far do you keep going for that person? And are you chasing something? Are you chasing an expectation that will never be there with that person? Or do you say, do you know what? I'm going to call it now, and I'm going to be respectful, and I'm going to be a manly man about it, and say, I'm going to cease this relationship, but if you ever need to contact me with something, I'm just going to leave the door open.
Yeah, it's like leaving that sort of false idea that being a pack horse or a mule to somebody is admirable, right? And you have to realize, no, I want to be a stallion. I don't want to pack your shit. You know what I mean?
I want to be a stallion. So it's interesting when I was when I'd received this news from Mama T about my father, and I was crying. I think this is where I've grown as a person. So I realized there were two reasons why I was crying. So one reason was because I am the child from that marriage between my father and my mother. I am the child, and when it comes to that relationship with my father, and in particularly this particular situation, I'm being the adult. Like I'm being the bigger man. And I was just hopeful that my father was going to step up. I like sincerely was. I can say that with a full and open heart, that I really wanted him to step up and meet the expectations that I have as a parent. And at the end of the day, he has not changed, and at this stage in his life, he never will. I honestly think so. This again to me just reinforced what type of man I was not going to be. So I really am trying to look at the positive. And the second reason why I was crying was because I was sad for the little boy in me that just wanted his father, who could just not be what I needed him to be. That little boy has been chasing a phantom of a father, and he can just rest now. And that whole conversation and the fact that I committed to trying to make that better, that was really freeing for me, knowing that I can now physically do no more for that.
Yeah, I think that's what we have to get to is when we do, because we have, like you said, those people in the inner circle. We've talked about this too. Like you chase after them harder, and you chase and you chase, and you get vulnerable and more vulnerable, and you get more desperate, and you want their acceptance. And at some point, you have to realize like they don't want the same thing you want, and that by us chasing, we're taking our time away from making ourselves the person we need to be. I think that makes sense.
It does. Do you know what? I might not think that they don't want the same thing. I think that perhaps those people are just incapable of providing that to you.
Yeah. It's so weird to think of people being incapable because I always think of us as being sort of plastic. We can we can we can change whoever we want to be by the way our thoughts are. So I always think everybody has the capacity to change and be better, and it's just like so that incapable just seems strange to me because it's like to me it's about intention. If they don't want, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying there when I'm saying that?
I do. And what I think it is that I think men like you and me, we are strong enough to accept that we have flaws and that we are imperfect. And that when we feel that we're like, right, we accept that that is a flaw, or that is an area that needs to be improved. And I can talk for me. I want to improve that area. Like I'm going to be honest. I'm going to look in the fucking mirror, and I'm going to say, who am I, and what person do I want to be? And when I hear feedback from those people in my inner circle, I am at least honest enough with myself to look in the mirror and say, right, is that fact? Am I the person that the feedback has given to? And sometimes it's yes, and sometimes it's no. And when it's yes, and I feel from you, Dusty, that you're also the person that will go, right, fuck, that's fact. Okay. I can see how that person interpreted that action. I can see how that person interpreted that behavior, and that's not the person I want to portray. And so now I'm going to put in the hard work, and I'm going to do whatever is required to fucking change that.
Exactly. No, you hit it right on the head, man. That's perfect.
Like when I take personal time, and lately because like I've like secured tickets to see Jordan Peterson in Vancouver on the 2nd of May this year, I was listening to one of his, I don't know, like sound clips, voice bites, like whatever on YouTube about being honest. And so where I wanted to go with that was he's talking about being brutally honest. And that's one thing that I love about Dr. Jordan Peterson is that he's an academic, he's articulate, but he's totally practical. And the thing that I think you and I, like we share multiple things in common, Dusty, but like is being able to be brutally honest with yourself about, I'm getting feedback, like this is the perception that I think that I am. Like this is the person that I perceive that I to be within the community, within the world right now, within this moment of time. And when those people in your trusted circle say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, that we're able to say, do you know what? I get where you're coming from. And I think that is key, that people are not able to be brutally honest with themselves to say, do you know what? Yeah, I fucked up there. Yeah. Or that I need to improve in that area.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So I'm trying to make it a thing to do shout outs. like shout outs of businesses or people that have like done good. I've started that from day dot, and I'm trying to make it about businesses that have provided exceptional service, and I mean exceptional service. And so I've had like, what have we had, like 2 weeks now that we haven't since we've recorded. So like this week, it's Langley Jeep Chrysler. So down past the Surrey overpass in Surrey, even though it is called Langley Jeep Chrysler, on the Langley bypass down, it's just before, or it's down at the Ford Dam end of, I call it the auto strip of like the Langley bypass. I went down there and I purchased in quotes, a new truck from there, which is totally comical because I think it was in episode 2 I did that mock Dennis Leary skit about about America, dropping a 6.2 litre supercharged Hemi motor into a truck. And so look, I was not even really looking at buying a truck. I had a very nice truck. It really was a beautiful truck. I know it must sound like cash for comment here, and I'm not sure if you know, Dusty, there was like a bit of a controversy in the Australian Broadcast Commission back some time ago. Like John Laws, he was this radio announcer back in 1999. Like, and he was an iconic Australian radio broadcaster. Who would make comments on the radio about products that were not a part of his show, like all the formal advertising agreement that the radio station had with like the businesses. And so he would make products or businesses didn't have the formal agreement, and then Mr. Laws would be allegedly receiving payments, either they were cash or they were products and services from the business, and when he was making comments about them on radio. So I just want to make it very clear that that this is not something like that. From day dot, I've said I'm always going to call out businesses doing like the right thing or the good thing, because I think there's not enough of it happening. So I generally had an amazing experience with Langley Jeep Chrysler. So I really want to highlight the story because I think it demonstrates two things, like how I've grown as a person is the first thing, and how a person dealing with a difficult situation can change your whole perception on a situation. So originally, I had a not so nice experience with the dealership. And I'm going to keep the details confidential because it's superfluous to this story and it's in the past. However, I began to deal with Mike, who contacted me about the issue that I had. It wasn't an easy issue to deal with. And so Mike and we must have talked 3 or 4 times over the course of about 10 days regarding this issue that I had. And from those interactions, we built a relationship and a rapport. So I think we built this mutual respect, and we resolved the initial issue that I had. And then we ended up just having a discussion about the truck. And Mike had mentioned to me that he'd had 3 used ones in the yard. And, if I was to ever, stop by, then, I should say hi and come and look at these trucks. So the other day, I guess probably 2 weeks had gone by, maybe, since I had spoken with Mike. And I was out and about doing errands and whatever else. And so I emailed Mike. And I just wanted to see if he was in the office, so that I, sort of said, like, it'd be nice to come and meet you. I had, like, a really good experience with him resolving this issue, and I really wanted to take him up on his offer. And have a look at these. So I went into the dealership. Mike was available. I met with Mike, and he organised with one of his staff, Shauna, to assist me with whatever inquiries or whatever I needed. So, I met with Shauna, and we were talking, and I was wearing my Rip Wheeler jacket. So I'm a big Yellowstone fan. I'm not gonna hide the fact I really like that show. I like what it's about. I like how Taylor Sheridan has written it. I like the cast. I really think that they've nailed that show. So I was a bit of a fanboy. I went and bought some articles of clothing. Like I bought a Rip Wheeler jacket. I went and bought a Casey Dutton vest. And so I was wearing my Rip Wheeler jacket that day. And she mentioned how she's just started watching it. She had not watched Yellowstone for a long time. She'd been recommended it to a friend. And she's like, wow, like I know that jacket. Like she knew the why for the Dutton Yellowstone Ranch. And so I just thought that she was a cool and personable chick. So I tell her that I'm interested in at least going for a ride, and it organises the keys. We take a test drive around the block. I'm not sure if she knew it at the time, but 2 minutes into a 7-minute test drive, I wanted that truck. It's not a need. It was a want. It was a total want. I'm going to be totally honest about that now. Now that truck that I drove is sitting in the driveway.
Yeah, we took a spin on it, and it's pretty awesome. I've been in a Lambo and a Ferrari and a Audi R8, and that thing had me giggling like I was in those vehicles. So it's fucking pretty awesome.
I just the more that I've driven it over the time that I've picked it up, I've owned it just over a week. The technology that has gone into that truck is continually, I'm amazed at the technology that's gone into it. The things that they've thought about, and I don't know how they've thought about it, whether they actually put together models of the truck and then they had someone sit in it and said, oh, what about this and what about that? And I'm really astounded by how well built and how well made that truck is.
Yeah, when you push that launch, there's a launch button in it. So you had a full stop, push this launch button, and we took off like a bat out of hell. And we were up to 110 pretty fast. And the thing that surprised me, in a truck, you had no tire spin on the pavement as far as a burnout. That thing gripped like a tiger. It was yeah, I couldn't believe that the tires didn't spin at all. You just gripped and just ripped it down the road.
Yeah, for something that my old truck weighed, I think it was when I would go to the dump in Surrey, I think it was about 2,700 kg. I think that's what that truck weighs. That for a 6.2 litre supercharged Hemi V8 that's pushing 702 kilowatts at the flywheel, that thing motors in that truck, man. Yeah. They've really constructed it well. Yeah. I have to say. So I guess what I want everyone to know is that the moral of the story is that if it wasn't for Mike and if it wasn't for how he treated me with care and with dignity and respect, and he valued me as a human being, I probably would have never have gone back to that dealership. I mean, that is my consumer right to, and it's my consumer privilege to shop wherever I feel comfortable. And even in the face of adversity, Mike turned a challenging situation into what ended up being an extremely positive one at the end. And another person I want to mention from the Langley Jeep Chrysler dealership is Stu. He's one of the sales managers down there. He actually he helped deliver the Ram 1500 Sport that I had bought 18 months prior. But what I was really impressed with Stu is that 18 months had passed, and when Shauna and I were getting into the numbers of the, and she said, "Hey, this is one of the sales managers, Stu." Not only did Stu remember my name, but he asked me about a particular topic that him and I had discussed 18 months prior. Like he actually retained that information, and so in that moment, he earned a marble in my marble jar. And for anyone that doesn't know what that means, it's a metaphor, and it's Brene Brown's metaphor, and it's in her Call to Courage Netflix special. She talks about friends earning trust by filling up your marble jar, and it's the metaphor she uses when she's explaining to her daughter about trust. And she's saying that trust is like a jar. And when someone does something nice or kind, you put a marble in their jar. And when they do something to fuck you over, you take a marble out of that jar. And the jar either gets filled or it gets emptied. And whatever one happens first is how you know if you can trust them or not. So, like, if they obviously fill it, then you know that you can trust them, and if they empty it, then you know that you can't trust them. And Stu, remembering the conversation that we had 18 months prior to me seeing him again, he definitely earned a marble in my trust jar. And Stu is always like very professional, and he's a straight shooting guy. And I really appreciate that, because that's how I try to operate. Like, I might not always say something that's going to be kind or polite, but it's going to be straight shooting. It's going to be honest. You're going to know exactly where you stand. So I appreciate that. So between Mike, Shauna, and Stu, I sincerely had the most amazing customer service experience that I've ever had. And all businesses should be on notice, because I now judge you based on the Jeep Chrysler Langley experience that I had. But like, I'm just kidding, but like, it was seriously that good, Dusty. Yeah. So if you're in the market for a Jeep Chrysler or a Jeep Dodge, I wouldn't hesitate to recommending those people. So getting back to the family day long weekend, so we obviously went to Alberta recently. This is probably old news now, because we were meant to talk about this last week, but it was a really interesting experience that I had there. So as I understand it, or as I understood it, and I believe that this has happened, Alberta has removed the vaccine passport mandates come March 1st this week, 2022. Which means that the general public will no longer have to wear masks in indoor spaces. Is that, are you on top of this, Dusty?
Yep. They pretty much, the whole country's going that way. I think by March 15th, I think the whole country's basically no more mandates anywhere. So for the most part, except for BC. BC is holding tight onto the little...
the thread of...
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that makes me wonder, or agitated the most, I guess would be more agitation, is that if you take health stats across the country, British Columbia's on average are the healthiest in the country. So why do we have the most restrictions? We have the lowest smoking rates in the country. We have the highest activity levels, mainly because of our climate. We can get outside earlier in the year. We have the lowest obesity rates in the country, probably in North America as well. Like I'm saying in the country, but it's probably North America wide. So, but we have the greatest restrictions in all of North America. I think I don't even know where Australia is at this point, but I know as far as Europe and North America, we have the most restricted area in the world right now.
I don't know what it is. Like, BC reminds me of South Australia, which is where I'm from, but I think they go a couple of levels above what South Australia did. Now, South Australia were like super stringent on their firearm policy, but like in regards to the rest of Canada, like when I first landed here, in July 2017, I was able to buy an AR. I was able to buy handguns once I had achieved the required licenses that the Canadian federal government required me to do. And now it's been interesting with the person that's in charge of the health care sector here, just the policies that they've made regarding BC. So when I was walking around West Edmonton Mall on the Saturday of the family day long weekend, look, these are probably rough numbers, but from my perspective, at least 25 to 30% of the people were not wearing a mask inside. So this was like 8 to 10 days prior to the Albertan provincial government removing the mask mandate, right? They were already doing it, Okay. And so I'm talking everyone from teens to like 2.5 children families were not wearing masks. Out of like every 100 people, there would have been at least 25 to 30 that were not wearing them. And personally for me, as soon as I saw one person, my mask was off. I'm like, if one person is doing it, I'm not doing it. And I never got asked to put my mask on. Like the whole time that I was in the mall, I never got asked. I mean, now I was rocking my Let's Go Brandon t-shirt and my Trigger Tech ball cap. And I think I have a pretty thick beard, Dusty. So I sort of screamed, fuck with me and find out. But like I even walked past 4 security guards and I looked them straight in the eyes and none of them said anything that I wasn't wearing a mask. It was almost like they were like, we've had enough of this too.
Yeah, well, I think that's it for sure. I mean, I haven't worn a mask the whole time, and I've never had a problem. I don't go into a ton of places, but I think it's about confidence. It's like, it's almost, to me, it's almost like when you're hiking on a trail, if a bear sees you, it'll like be like, is this person going to be a problem for me? And because I've heard from women and older men and smaller men, they always get harassed for not, if they try not to follow the rules. I've never had a problem. And I'm not saying I'm some like massively rock-like guy, but I'm 6 feet, 200 pounds. I wear military shirts and have a big, decent beard, and I look like a Viking.
You
right?
you do look like a Viking.
Yeah,
like
so,
seriously, in every tradition of the word,
yeah.
you look like a Viking.
Yeah, and so no one's ever said shit to me, and it's like, I think people just like it's almost like we're in a situation where now the hall monitors have a voice. And they've been using it for the last 2 years, and now as we're coming out of it, they're realizing, oh no, I'm just a hall monitor, so I got to shut up again. So it's like we're coming back out of that circle of where these people that thought they finally had power to be able to voice their sort of power over somebody else that might be, stronger than them.
Do you know what? I think it was episode 2 where you said, if this virus was so serious, where are the hazmat bins?
Totally.
And I'm going to be honest, like, I have really thought about that. That when you sort of went down that path, I really took it on board. Like me personally, I took it on board. And so I looked at, when we were in the West Edmonton Mall, the water park was open. And I thought, if COVID-19 was serious, why was the water park open with 98% of the people not wearing a mask or social distancing? It makes no logical sense to me, and so maybe you can shed some light on this, Dusty. Like, why is that? What makes Alberta so different from, say, BC, where those people were like, fuck you, we're not wearing a mask. If you guys are going to change the mandate, we're not wearing a mask right now.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like, so let's say Bonnie Henry changes it in BC in a week, 2 weeks. What's the difference in me not wearing it today as it is in 2 weeks? Just because because she's an unelected official, we didn't elect her. She has this massive power over 5 million people by everything she says. BC's top doctor, that's debatable. The top doctor's probably in surgery today. So we're taking advice from, I'm not saying she's not educated, she doesn't know what she's doing, but that's a lot of power for one person to have. The other guy, Adrian Dix, he's an elected official, but he's never had any experience or education in healthcare. So you have the elected official with no education. You have the unelected official with education, but they hold power over 5 million people. And to me, that's insane. Like, when you give that much power to 2 people, there's so much room to let it go to your head. And I think that's what's kind of happened, because just think about the mask. Like, I always say it's like trying to it's like putting a chicken wire fence around your patio to keep the mosquitoes out. You've seen the cloth mask people are wearing, or the paper ones. The holes in that mask are far bigger than the virus. So that virus is flowing through freely, right? And so these things, and yeah, that's the other thing too, like from area to area. Well, Florida was open since August 2020. Other states have different ways. We've been locked down. California and New York were a bit more strict. But none of the statistics show that any one was better than the other. It's because it's open. You know what I mean? It's only, these are just fake borders that we have between jurisdictions. So why is there a difference between what everybody's doing? If it's a science, everybody should have agreement on the science and do the same thing. But nobody does. It's all arbitrary and it's all political. To me, all this is political. It's not really based on science.
Well, I agree. I mean, one or two people having like power over 5 million. It's sort of like what Uncle Ben and Spider-Man said: with great power comes great responsibility. And who is keeping these people in check for the power and hence the responsibility that they have? I mean, on that Saturday, it was February 19th, so it was 9 days before the Albertan mask mandate was to lift. People were exercising and they were reinstating their freedom of autonomy. And you said it actually before I'm saying it now, Dusty. Like, so my question was to the provincial government, what makes the difference between a specific date? So if Bonnie Henry in 10 days or in 14 days was to say, hey, on the 15th of March, we are going to be mask free, or what's the difference between now and then? There is no difference. No. If there was a problem, it would be right now.
Totally. And then the thing is, both of us talked about it. We both think we had Omicron. I didn't get tested, but I'm sure I had it. It was, all my symptoms were on the bottle of NyQuil, over Christmas. We don't talk about natural immunity. That is a thing, and it actually, there's studies to show that it actually has longer lasting effects than the vaccine. So why aren't we talking about the fact that most people in BC probably have natural immunity, if not being covered by their vaccines? If they do believe that they work, then, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the thing. They want to mandate our private healthcare workers in this province, but they're saying that the vaccine isn't very effective against Omicron. Well, we're in that state now, so why mandate people that have already lived through the first round, Delta, Omicron, now to get two vaccines that aren't effective against this new variant when they probably already had Omicron as well? So what are you making them take those two vaccines for the next variant that might come up in September, October? You know what I mean?
No.
So what is the point of that?
Look, I 100% do. And so this is coming from a person like, I am vaccinated, right? And I'm vaccinated so that I felt that it would be a requirement for me to board an airplane to go down and see my daughter in Australia. That is the only reason I have been vaccinated, right? But talking about the healthcare vaccination mandate, to me, it seems far more efficient to say, okay, you've got two choices. You can get vaccinated or not be vaccinated, right? Fair enough, because I really support a person's freedom of choice of their own healthcare, like to take autonomy over their own healthcare. So if they get vaccinated, no problems. If they don't want to get vaccinated, why don't they just take, which I don't believe in this test, but why don't they just say, okay, so you've got to take a rapid test every morning? Like you've got to take, that is far more efficient than I think the health risk that are associated or that are still being documented now in taking the vaccine. We spoke about it last episode, Dusty. Yeah. The only difference between you and me with having COVID or Omicron is that I am now at risk in the future, and I may not, but I am the only one at risk that has any risk of having health side effects because I've taken the vaccine where you haven't.
Exactly. And all the Pfizer documents came out this week, and people can go take a look at that, and it's pretty alarming. I can see why they didn't want those released for 80 years, right? And the judge ruled that they had to release them in March and April this year. So I'm not saying much about it, but just go take a look for yourself. There's Pfizer documents are out. The way I look at it too, okay, so this is a little, I've kind of explained it this way. So you and I live on a forest, or I'll say not you, because I will say myself and somebody else lives on a forest, on the side of a forest. We got our houses there. My neighbor, and we've heard that there's theoretical wolves in the forest. Like somebody said, oh, there's wolves in the forest. You got to make sure, you don't go wandering around because, they're definitely out there. Somebody's seen them, but none of us have seen them. And so my neighbor is a little bit more worried about it, so he puts a fence around his yard, right? I decide not to put a fence around my yard. Still haven't seen any wolves. My neighbor is now mad at me because he's saying, oh, your fenceless yard is now going to have, the wolves will come into your yard, and now I'm at risk because the wolves are in your yard. But I'm like, well, no, you've got a fence around your yard. Don't worry about it. in realistically, the wolf can still jump over his fence. So, the fence isn't really protecting his yard from the wolves. What I don't have, though, is the risk that maybe the fence boards that were sprayed with chemicals are leaching into my garden.
Correct.
Right? And the thing is, if a wolf does come in my yard, I've got a 30-06 on the wall. I'm going to blow the wolf's head off, which is my immune system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So don't worry about the fence. Don't worry about the wolf. Make sure you got a high caliber firearm that's, locked and loaded, ready to go, right? You know what I mean? So basically, like I'm saying, the firearm is the immune system, right? The fence, the wolf can jump the fence. So why worry about the fence, or why worry about my yard not having the fence?
Look, at the end of the day, it's like what I think about when someone, let's say you're a drug dealer.
Yeah.
If someone knows that you have those, they are going to get in. Like, they are going to plan, they are going to get the relevant resources, extra people. It doesn't really matter how you try to protect your castle. If they want to get in, if someone wants to get in, they're going to get in.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the same thing. The virus, a virus is the most efficient thing to infiltrate your body. If it's going to get in, it'll get in no matter what you do. And to me, if the vaccines were truly vaccines, then they would have been tried and tested, and there would be no side effects, and there would be no risk for human consumption of them.
For sure, and it'd be tested for years and years. That was my main issue with them, is that they just didn't have the long-term studies on this, especially for children. Fine, if you're at risk, I have no problem with that, and it's your choice, do it. But to put it into children, when we've had, I believe, and if I'm wrong, make sure you leave a comment. I believe we've had 2 kids in BC die from COVID. I'd say I say with COVID, not from, but that's for debate. They both had terminal cancer with, under my understanding. So it was, like you said, it was with, and that, I think that, there was a CTV report out of Toronto saying that they're now reevaluating all the deaths in Ontario, that a lot of people died with COVID, not of COVID.
What? So that's on CTV. See, I'm going to be honest, Dusty. Maybe this is ignorant of me and maybe short-sighted. I don't listen to mainstream media or watch mainstream media anymore because of the reasons that we spoke about last episode, is that it's not about being factual and correct. It's just about being first to print or publicizing it first. So on our TV services that we have in our house, we don't have any of those news networks. And I don't rely on Facebook, but I'm going to rely on Facebook that if I read something that a friend of mine, someone that I trust, has published, then that's going to be a thing for me to start. That's going to be a thread that I'm going to start picking at. And until I see that, and I don't like the people that are in charge of Facebook or the fact checkers or anything like that, but I know that there are certain people that I know are professional, that research, that only publish stuff on their Facebook page, which I think is a great platform for people to share information. That if I see something from a trusted source, I'll start picking at that thread then. But I'm not watching CTV. I'm not watching any of that bullshit because to me, they're not trying to be right. They're not trying to be factual. They're not trying to have integrity. They're just trying to get fucking to print.
Well, you're right, and the thing is, though, when I see that now, it's like it almost seems like it's a save face tactic now. Like they realize, oh shit, 2 years we were reporting something, and now we see that it's so we're gonna get this report out, so that way when we can see, oh yeah, see, we told the truth. Like to me, they might actually be telling the truth in this case because now they're trying, because they know that the narrative is crumbling, and now they're just putting something out to save face when the narrative fully crumbles away. You know what I mean? And that they maybe in this case they have actually, because I've been saying this all along, that a lot of people are dying with COVID, not of terminal cancers, heart disease. They're saying, well, you died of, when someone's got stage 4 cancer and they die of COVID, did they, or did they die a week earlier than they were going to die? Well, you know what I mean?
That's the same thing as on the Joe Rogan Experience. Like Dr. McCulloch and Dr. Malone was saying that if your immune system was already compromised, then COVID can ravage it.
Totally.
Okay. But it's not necessarily that if you are a healthy human being like you and me that eat healthy, that exercise, that aren't consuming copious amounts of alcohol, there's nothing compromising your immune system.
Yeah.
Then there should be no reason why your natural immunity cannot fight this virus. But for, say, someone like my mum, who has rheumatoid arthritis, her immune system is already compromised, and I say to her, I think you made the right decision.
Totally.
Like, I pray to whatever is out there that she doesn't have any side effects, but I say to her, that was a good call for you to get the vaccine because your immune system was already compromised. What people need to understand, though, the data is saying that it does not prevent you from getting COVID. You will still get it, or you still can get it. It just makes the symptoms less.
Yeah, the way I'll go to another one that I say too. Like, I kind of think of this thing as, I don't know if when I was a kid, I used to be afraid like there was a monster, right, in the bed or the house, right?
I've spoken with this about Emo Samurai.
So I used to pull the covers right. I used to sleep with the covers over my head.
I did the same.
But we're looking at COVID like it's a 7-foot monster with a machete, right?
Yep.
If COVID was as deadly as everybody, the media and the politicians are trying to, make us believe it is, that 7-foot monster would slash the fuck out of you in your bed. Your blanket wouldn't do anything. Your little binky wouldn't do anything. COVID is a midget with a wiffle bat.
Not even.
If you're already vulnerable, that wiffle bat will be the last few. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do now. Yep.
Right? It's like the last pinprick. If you're bleeding out and you get a pinprick, but that's the last drop of blood left in you, well, that, you know what I mean?
I do.
But if you're fully, you're a healthy person and you get a pinprick, well, it's just a couple drops of blood. You're fine. You're not going to die, right? You know what I mean?
I do.
So, anyways, that's kind of how I look at it, and I've looked at it the whole time like that, where it's like, yeah, well, keep yourself. No one's talked about health this whole time. Eating right, exercising, getting vitamin D. 80% of the people that have died from COVID have vitamin D deficiencies. Why aren't we talking about that? Because it doesn't make anybody any money.
Because it's not supporting the narrative that the general media want you to fear.
Totally. Yeah, and nobody has Pfizer money falling out of their pockets.
So I mentioned earlier, we went to Edmonton and I was running in minus 29 degrees, like commie units. And I have to say that is a serious commitment, like making sure that your body is physically protected. You really need to take the appropriate steps. And so I'm just going to go through a couple that I felt were important. So the first step, if you're going to run in minus 29 degrees Celsius in commie units, is wear the appropriate clothing. Okay. Make sure that your torso is insulated properly. Okay. I really made sure I wore a t-shirt, I wore a hoodie, I wore a vest, like all sort of thermal rated stuff. And I was still a little bit cool, but I wasn't uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the biggest thing that I underestimated was the footwear, like what you actually needed to do to run in minus 29 degrees. So make sure that you're running in good supportive footwear. But the thing that got me is that Grandpa G recommended is he said, hey, do you want to wear these spikes? Because it's not just snow you're running in. It's in Edmonton, it's ice. Like when it snows, it melts, it freezes, it becomes ice, and then it snows, and then it melts, and then it freezes. And so he had these like spikes that are basically these metal spigots that like infused or fixed to this rubber harness that stretches over like your running shoes.
Yeah, so it's like rubber crampons for hiking is what it would be. I've seen them before. I see people wear them on the ice, like just to walk across the ice sometimes, like at the ice arena.
Huh.
Yeah, so it's basically like, what would it be like? Almost like chains for your tires, right? Like it fits around the shoe.
It is exactly the same thing. It was basically wearing running spikes, but not on dedicated like track shoes. So it was interesting. You know, I was running, and I bet that the guy or the woman who invented these are laying next to the guy on a beach in Cabo who invented the post-it notes.
Totally.
Like they're like in Canada or probably Russia, like those colder countries, they've probably made a killing. Like because you don't have to wear dedicated running spikes to actually go running out in the cold. You can wear your Nikes or your Adidas or your Under Armour shoes, and you can stretch these over it. And I think they like places like Costco sell them or MEC or any place like that. They're basically crucial.
Yeah.
Like they're totally key. I mean, some of the footpaths that I was running in the back alleys were I was barely getting traction on the ice. It was so hard. Like when I walked out the door to start my run, the cold, frigid air, like just it punches you in the face like a motherfucker. Like I'm not gonna lie. And it was interesting. Like I posted it on my personal Facebook page, and I had a buddy from Australia comment. And he asked, like, would I prefer 46 degrees Celsius or minus 29 degrees Celsius? And my response was, there are no winners in that race. Like, both of those temperatures are fucked. Like, they really honestly are. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah, extremes.
So, school sports, Dusty, they seem like, are they becoming a distant memory?
Yeah, like that's it. Like everything. I remember when we did school sports, because I was thinking this the other day. Like when a kid does school sports now, they actually have to pay to be. Yeah, have you noticed that? Have you experienced that at all?
Look, because of COVID, most of like Bake Bosses or Emo Samurais, they haven't been doing sports.
That's true
to be honest with you. So no, I haven't noticed. There's a fee involved.
Yeah, well, when we used to do it, I mean, we'd have school bus rides over to the next school district, and we'd have tournaments or games against other teams, and it was like we didn't have to put out a dime. I mean, yeah, and you're right. I mean, in the COVID, I was thinking, I guess, just pre-COVID, right? But nowadays, it's you got to pay to be on the team, and
I just remember there being like a dozen sports that were offered at my primary and high school. I mean, and my primary school in Canadian terms was like elementary school. It was basically an R to 7, and high school was an 8 to 12. And it's funny, like I remember there being this home group teacher like on like the first day that we started, like what do you call it? They called it O week, but it was basically where you went into school and you become acquainted with all of the facilities and the areas and.
Oh yeah, fuck, it's so long since
I know.
So you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, I vaguely remember.
So I remember it being O Day, and we got there, and like the first teacher that started talking was Mr. Smart, and I remember his joke was, "Good morning, my name's Mr. Smart, first name Very." Like that has always stuck with me. Like for the last 30 years.
That's funny.
Yeah, I just remember that. But like, it's interesting. The reason why I'm asking what happened to school sports was school sports is where I learned like many social life lessons. I learned interpersonal interactions. I learned the value of teamwork, work ethic, sacrifice. I learned physical fitness. And for me, all of those laid the foundation for the healthy lifestyle that I have now.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, now that I think back, it's like, yeah, we always had teams. There's teams from, probably from grade 4, grade 5, all the way through. You had volleyball, you had basketball, we even had a teacher, Mr. Fleming. It's Dr. F.D. Sinclair in Surrey. He used to run a floor hockey league with the kids from grade 5. It was grade 5, 6, 7. And he'd run this intramural league at lunchtime and before. I remember because I'd ride my bike to school early to play my game. And we had official teams. We had names. And every year for 3 years, he ran a floor hockey league. And it was one thing I really looked fondly back at. And I don't think the kids do that anymore. You know what I mean? Like they just don't. There's not that that commitment by the teacher. And maybe it's with liabilities. Now we have legal things that people have to worry about. Back in those days, if I took a hockey ball off the face and came home with a sideways nose, it wasn't a big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now it's like these teachers have to worry. Like you go take them on a bus. The car, if it's in an act, you know what I mean? Like it's different. We were actually in a school bus when I was in band, and we got struck by an ambulance. No one sued. No one was majorly injured, but it was like nowadays there'd be lawsuits.
It's just a soft generation.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I remember like one of the at the time it was funny. It's funnier now that I think about it, but one of the funniest times I can remember throughout my whole childhood was cricket practice after school in grade 7. So I remember I went to Hackham West Primary School. It was like a tiny school in the suburb of Hackham West, and they had a big and little oval. So the big oval was up the top of this hill, and it was a full football oval, and it was the cricket oval, and it had cricket nets there. And then the little oval was more of a soccer pitch. And I remember there used to be this massive tree. I don't even remember what sort of tree it was, but for whatever reason in grade 7, during the time that we were doing cricket practice, a whole beehive had made that tree its home. And it wasn't a hardened beehive like, say, like a hornet's nest. You traditionally think it was like, so live bees, but I kid you not, it was at least the size of a football. Okay. And so during recess, like there was a whole heap of kids that doing what kids do, like 11, 12-year-old kids, we started throwing sticks at it, just trying to hit it down, right? And so very quickly, the teachers become aware of what we were doing, and then they cordon the area off. But after school, there are no teachers, and you make your own rules. So what we did is there were me and several buddies that were waiting there for cricket practice to start. So school finished at 3, and cricket practice didn't start till 3:30 minutes to occupy ourselves. And so we gathered up sticks and we all threw them at this beehive. And what ended up happening was that we missed everyone, right? But they all landed underneath the tree. And as you were at that age, you're like, fuck that, I'm not going underneath the beehive. Even though it was 20 foot in the air, I'm not going under that beehive. So there was one particular kid that was ballsier than everyone else. I'm not going to say his name just because I don't know if he wants to be called out, but he was like, I'll do it. And so he went underneath the tree and he started gathering the sticks. And what he did is he grabbed the first stick that he grabbed, he sort of like just hoiked up straight, like vertical over his head. And then he started gathering the rest of the sticks. What he didn't know is that he hit the beehive and that the entire clump of bees fell. And we watched it fall like the coyote in the Coyote Roadrunner. It fucking hit him it hit him right on the back of the neck. And then there was just like a massive swarm. And he fucking ran. Like he was on fire. What do you think we did?
Laughed.
We fucking pissed our pants laughing, right? And he's yelling and hollering. He gets his shirt. He throws it off now. Like, thank God he wasn't allergic to bees because he would have been fucked. Like, I'm talking with a capital F destination fucked. So after, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, he came back. I think we counted something like 88 bee stings. I'm talking they were in his ears. They were on his head. He wasn't wearing a shirt at the time, and we all thought we were badass when we rode our BMXs over his fucking T-shirt and bees came out. Like, dude, he's just lucky that he wasn't allergic to bees. Do you know what? He's a badass motherfucker because he still trained a full training of cricket practice. Like he's like, I gotta give him credit, man. And if he ever listens to this, he will know exactly who he is. So I got credit for you because
30 years later, I still remember that.
But isn't it funny though? Because you're telling me this and I'm giggling and I'm laughing.
Yeah.
And it's like, if it was two women talking about this, I think they'd have a different response. Be like, oh my gosh, was little Timmy all right? Or whatever his name was. You know what I mean? And you said the same response was you guys as children. So even when we're grown males, I'm 46 years old, I still giggle my ass off hearing that.
It was funny. It really was. Like, now that I think about it, like, it was serious at the time, but that's only with the perspective of being an adult that it's serious, like knowing like the connotations that could have happened. Yeah. But
I figure, you telling the story that it turned out all right.
It did.
Well, the thing is, we take pride in with our buddies getting this like hurt as much as possible without anything serious happening to them. So if you watch your buddy get kicked in the balls, you would laugh your ass off, right? Like we have this sadistic sort of, it's like camaraderie. The more we can inflict pain on each other. Right?
I do.
We have, care that we don't actually physically or permanently harm our friends. But, those little moments of some kind of pain to your friend, like if your friend took a firecracker off the bare chest, we'd laugh our ass off at that. Right?
I get it. I remember when we lived at the other house, Emo Samurai, he must have been like 9. I remember him coming inside. And he was shaken. He was physically shaken. And I'm like, bud, what's up? And he's like, I just crashed my bike into a wall. I'm like, what do you mean? And he said that he was playing with his buddy and they were racing and he had to beat his buddy. But then he was going too fast where he couldn't corner correctly. And he went through a bush, a hedge, and crashed into the side of a townhouse in our complex. So he's recounting this story to me and I'm like, are you injured? And he's like, I don't think so. And I'm like, well, can you move your hands? Can you move your fingers? Do your arms hurt any? And he said, no, I'm all good. But there is a shape that I've broken in the hedge that is the shape of me with my push bike. I'm like, that is funny as fuck, dude. Because he was okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. He thought that he was in trouble because he damaged the hedge and that he had... What was that game that they used to have where, I think it was on American TV, that the wall would come at you and there would be a particular shape and you would have to make that shape, and if you didn't make that shape, then the wall would hit you and push you into water?
Well, it was always Wipeout.
Wipeout, that's it.
Or there was MX, I think it was MXC, was a Japanese one. Did you ever see that?
I know the one you're talking about.
That is the fucking funniest show I've ever seen in my life. And it was on actually, is it on Prime? There's a few episodes. You've never seen that show because they have it overdubbed with an English speaker, man, that was like the piece de resistance back in the old days for humor, man. It was so funny. Just people just absolutely effing themselves up. And as guys, we don't, like I said, we don't want permanent injury, but it's almost like bonding by stupidity, right?
Yes,
right?
Bonding by stupidity. Yeah,
right?
I like it. Yeah, no, 100%. It really is. Where the point that I wanted to make with the school sports was that nowadays we're allowing our children to be babysat by TV or by social media or by a PlayStation. And I mean, like, those devices have their places, but personally for me, they shouldn't supersede physical outdoors activity or social interaction. Like, do you share the same thoughts?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no, we're just... It's so weird because it just feels like I don't feel like it was that long ago that I was a child and we were climbing trees and fucking catching frogs in the pond and playing sports. Like, it was literally a chore for my mom to get me in for dinner, and when I did, I barely touched my ass to the seat. I basically shoveled my food in, which became a problem as I got older because people would watch me eat. They're like, "Did you fucking chew?"
You're like a starving dog.
Yeah, and that was what it was like. I want to get back outside to play fucking street hockey or play football or whatever we were doing until it got past where you could barely see the ball anymore. You'd be the street lights hadn't quite come on, and it would be just at that edge right before they clicked on, and then as soon as then you'd run inside and go. It would be rain or shine. It didn't matter. You'd be outside. If it was snowing, you'd do stuff that involved snow, football. If it rained, you'd definitely be playing football because you want to get muddy. If it was sunny out, you'd be playing hockey. And yeah, the kids just I don't know if it's because we've bubble wrapped them, we don't want them. I don't know. It's so weird. I mean, I try to figure it out, but you know, it's a safer world now too, because we have so many cameras around. Like the pervs are actually on these devices. They're not
Yeah.
on the street, so the street's actually safer for our kids.
I do think though, like school sports built resilience.
Yeah.
Like if you have let's just say that like there's a gamer guy who has just played games in his mum's basement until he's like 18, and then his parents say that he needs to get a job. Personally, I think that he's going to have a hard time fitting into a workplace because he's not going to have the social interaction skills that you would develop playing school sports. I mean, once again, I totally get that TV has its place. We all work, or most parents would work a 40-plus hour week. And if you're a stay-at-home mum raising kids, then equally balancing a house budget and making baby food are all very important tasks. Like raising kids is like no mean feat. So there might be times that you have to put the TV on or the iPad on to get a few tasks done, and I totally appreciate that. One of the best things to come from Sugar Girl being a baby or in her toddler years was one of my ex's friends gave us this learning CD series for babies, and it was like you might call it here like Young Einstein or something like that. And so my ex would put Sugar Girl in the baby seat and would put one of those CDs on, and it had all this like really good stuff of learning, like learning numbers and learning letters and learning word pronunciation. And for me, like I really did notice it in Sugar Girl's development when she started talking. It was crazy fast. I mean, I guess where I'm going with this is if you're going to use a TV or an iPad for babysitting duties, like try to make it educational.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I've said this before. Like, if we had YouTube when we were kids, we would have been doing amazing things as well because we already had that ability to go outside and do things. I mean, there's a balance between. There was great things we did. We had this more physicality. We were out doing stuff, touching stuff. As far as like playing sports and interacting with people and learning how to talk and what ways worked, which ways weren't socially acceptable. You'd get shunned by people if you acted a certain way. You get in a fight if you didn't. You acted another way, right? Like little boys fighting, I honestly think is a really healthy thing. We've totally stopped that before they get man strength to actually hurt each other. So let's say a little boy a boy goes through his whole life and never gets in a fight. And he becomes 20. Not only does he have overconfident fighting skills he's never put to the task. You know what I mean? Like he's mouthy and he thinks, fuck you guys, I can do whatever I want. Well, you've never had your face punched.
Well, see, that's the difference between, say, people like the internet and keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
They're so quick to like bring someone down, to judge someone, or to make someone feel bad. It's because they haven't been punched in the face.
Totally. And the other way too is when you punch someone in the face, it doesn't feel that good because you know what I mean? Like after you've punched someone, you're like, oh man, I didn't like that I hurt that guy. But then like a lot of the people that I've actually had physical fights when I was a kid end up being friends because you almost like you go to battle with somebody, you gain respect by battling with somebody. And then you pick, one guy picks the other guy up, or if it's an equal fight, you shake hands and it's over. Go for a pop. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's interesting that you say like physically harming someone doesn't make you feel good. I've only been in one serious fight. Like I'm talking one fisticuff. I was in grade 12. The kid was in, I think he was grade 10. I think so. I was like 17. He was 15. I was hanging out with my buddies where we did like at the Oval in high school. And I don't know, for whatever reason, this kid, Ricky, came up and he was hassling my buddy. Now, like, I'm only like 5'7", 175 pounds, right? I'm not like a big male. And my buddy was, I don't know, he was like 6'2", probably like 180, 190 pounds, being sort of that 17, 18-year-old. And this Ricky kid like came up to him and was, I don't know, he was like, you're hassling me, or you, I don't really know what his deal was, but anyway, Ricky had some altercation with my buddy, and my buddy at the time, he wasn't a fighter, right? He was definitely more a lover than a fighter, more of a sensitive guy, and he's like, hey, I don't want no beef. Anyway, Ricky started just throwing like big, like windmill sort of punches. And my buddy did the right thing. He sort of just covered up, put his fist around his ears. He took a couple and I guess Ricky punched himself out. And then so Ricky started walking away and I sort of like said to him at the time, hey, you won the fight. Like, just fuck off. And he was like, I think he just needed that reassurance. I don't know if, I don't remember what the altercation was, right? And so I remember... I'm only going to call him by his first name. Stuart came up. I remember this kid came up to him and said, nah, man, he hasn't had enough, man. You need to... And I was like, what are you doing? Like, the situation is diffused.
Yeah.
And so he said, Stuart said, Ricky, he needed to go back and finish him off. And I remember this vividly. I turned Stuart around and I said, do you want to go? And he said yes. And that's all I needed. I remember throwing like a left jab to his face. I came with an overhand right and then another, like, I guess a left cross. They all hit him square in the mouth or the nose. He felt like a sack of shit. Then all I had was that traditional circle of kids around us. All I remember,
the old school circle,
fight. I didn't know what to do. Now I've got some perspective. This dude was absolutely concussed. He was absolutely punch drunk. He started clawing at my right ankle, like trying to pick himself up. Now, I didn't know that he was concussed at the time. I was like 17 years old, right? I didn't know what to do. I did what I thought do, and I started punching on him again, man. Like, I grabbed him by the collar and I was just punching him in. It was in the top of the head or the back of the head, which is super dangerous. Yep. Now I know it's super dangerous. I had a teacher come up and grab me and like fully manhandled me off him. Yeah. Right? Like, because I was
got into that other level. Because that happens,
I
right?
was just in rage. Yeah. I was totally out of control. Yeah. I was 17. I was fucking angry at my dad and I was just punching on this kid. Teacher pulled me off of him. Fuck off. Right? That's literally like the teacher saved this dude, like totally saved him. And I remember like all the other students were like, yeah, man, that was a sick fight, bro. Like, yeah. And I remember like the teacher that pulled me off him said, get to the office. And so I remember following the pools of blood to the office that this Stuart guy was like hemorrhaging. Yeah. Now I thought nothing of it at the time. I remember getting into the office and I was in like the waiting area, and then I heard his voice say, I'm going to be sick. So that's obviously a sign of major concussion. Like his body was reacting to being concussed. The teacher, and then I heard the nurse say, call an ambulance. And I thought, oh, fuck. Yeah. Like, I'm in fucking trouble. Like, didn't even think about like his health. Yeah. I knew that I was fucked. Yeah. And I remember like the teacher, I remember the assistant principal came in with my school folder, like my file, right? Like I remember them opening it up and straight A's and B's. Yeah. So I remember them opening. He looked at it. He said, A's and B's. Closed the folder and said, what's going on? And I said, I don't know. I guess in reflection, like that kid was picking on my friend and I was trying to protect my friend. And I wasn't a no good student. Like I did like Maths 1, Maths 2, chemistry, physics, and English. So I was a model student. It was obviously just rage against my father. It's the only thing that I knew.
Well, yeah, you had someone that was sort of enacting an inappropriate behavior in your mind, and you were just justified in your own mind that this guy is not doing the right thing right now and needs to be stopped.
Well, I think that's one of the beneficial things that my father treating me the way that he did grew this massive protection streak in me. Like, I honestly thought I was protecting my friend, and where we got onto this sort of tangent was it didn't feel good knowing that I'd hurt another human to the point where he went to hospital. I'd broken his nose and I'd put his teeth through his face. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful that I think this kid was a troublemaker, and I think his father knew, and he never pressed charges against me. Like, if there was any more justified action of pressing charges, like legal charges against another person, it was me. Like
Yeah.
I beat the shit out of this kid.
Yeah.
I'm not proud of it. I can tell you
Yeah.
now, I'm not proud. If I never get another fight, Dusty,
Yeah.
I'm totally good with that. And I remember seeing that kid when he returned to school and I had broken his nose because he had 2 black eyes, and that's a symptom of breaking someone's nose. I didn't feel good about it, man.
Yeah.
Like I honestly did not feel good about it.
Yeah, well, and that's what was kind of my point was, like, having little boys fight, and I'm not saying push them into fighting, but if there's a beef, get it out when you're little, when you don't have that, you have that almost had man strength by 17, 18 years old. You know what I mean? You started to anyways, where you could actually harm somebody. If you get, it's because I find, like, when little boys fight, you fit into, like, a hierarchy, like the lobster hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And if you learn that early enough, and because you gain mutual, you're like, that guy's an ass kicker. I never, he goes in this slot. This guy's around my thing, my level. So we kind of slot in similar, and then you just leave it. I find that's what it was for me, anyways. Like, we already knew by 12 years old who could fight and who didn't, who was okay fighters, and we just didn't do it. But I'm saying, all these kids nowadays, they don't ever go through that, so they could be 25, 30 years old. And all of a sudden now they have man strength, and they're actually harming people, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, man strength, because like before that moment I had no idea what I was capable of. Like none. Like I was so ignorant to how strong I was, and I guess that's why I could never physically hit my child.
Yeah.
We've said that. I said that last episode. I could never like strike Emo Samurai or Bake Boss or Sugar Girl, because I have no idea what I'm capable of, and I hope that I never have to find out like what I'm capable of. And you and I have spoken about it. I would much rather do something like BJJ or Krav Maga,
Yeah.
and do it against another man and learn how to control that.
Yeah.
Than to find out in the real world when I'm raging, when you are out of control,
Totally.
and then have to deal with the repercussions, like the legal repercussions, the community repercussions of that.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, no, I never really took it out on other people. I always had that rage inside as well too. And I just got good at doing drywall work. Like, I would punch walls. And it was back in the old days when I also, being a young male, loved women in bikinis. So I had every Sports Illustrated sort of cut up, and I'd have these bikini pictures all over my walls. But behind every bikini picture was a hole in the wall, right?
Really?
Because I didn't know how to curtail that absolute rage and frustration of feeling like you weren't enough. So I would take it out on myself. It would be my fist going through a wall, or my fist going into something, a locker, but never another human being. It was always against an inanimate object. But the one thing I have to say is, as I got older, that still wasn't conducive to a healthy
mindset.
Mindset, because I did it one time in front of my daughter when she was 1. X and I got in an argument or something like that. I got pissed off, and I punched the closet door. And I put my fist right through this. I took the closet right off the hinges, punched through the wall. Yeah. And I looked down at my daughter's face, and I never did it again, because it was like, no, dude, you're not a child anymore. This isn't a way you deal with feeling out of control. You need to and that's where I started my journey on trying to figure out this anger that was deep inside, right?
Yep.
Because that look, I still have the look, in my mind. I can still see her looking at me right?
I bet you'll never forget that look.
Never.
Airport gyms are interesting at 1:30 in the morning, Dusty. I mentioned earlier that we flew to Edmond for the Family Day long weekend to see the Outlaws, and I found myself up earlier than usual because it was just me, Bake Boss, and Emo Samurai, like traveling on that Friday in the morning. Mama G had work commitments, and so she caught a flight later. So at 1:30 in the morning, I got up. I thought, fuck it, let's go and see if the hotel gym was open. We stayed at the Fairmont at YVR, and I go downstairs. I speak to the reception, and they say, "Can I please see your proof of vaccination and government ID?" Now, the first thing I thought of was from episode 1, when you said you were going to the gym and it's like a speakeasy.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I honestly heard your voice in my head saying, "Hey, it's not like a speakeasy." So yeah, I provided the relevant documents. I go into the gym and there's this like little Asian guy on the cross cable trainer, no mask. Right, so I had to provide the appropriate government ID, but it wasn't regulated in there. I found it really funny, and I couldn't give a shit. Right, so no mask, go into the gym. Okay, so I just start running on the treadmill. I will tell you, it's weird being in the Fairmont gym at YVR at 1:30 and overlooking the departure area with nobody in there. It's just all empty computers and like empty login terminals, and it's basically a ghost town. I mean, I should have seen a tumbleweed rolling down the middle of the airport. It was that quiet. It was really strange. But yeah, I went on there and I did my workout, which is sort of my standard thing, and yeah, I just found that interesting, and I thought it was worth sort of mentioning. But while we were in Edmonton, we went to the new Rogers Place. So we went and saw the Oilers. They were playing the Wild, and Mama G looked into getting tickets, and she was able to jag a few, and we thought it would be a good experience, so we went. And like the good dude I am, I wanted to support the home team, so I went to West Edmonton Mall to look for a jersey, an Oilers jersey. Can I just say that the cost of fan wear is fucking ridiculous here? Like, it's seriously is it's a debauchery. It really is. So a standard Oilers jersey, I'm talking like no name, started at $100 Canadian. Okay. And then a generic name jersey was about 180 Canadian. And the official legit game jersey with a name on the back, so like McGregor, was 250 Canadian dollars plus taxes. It was so fucking rude. Like, I don't know how the average Joe Canadian affords it.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's insane.
But the venue itself, like Rogers Place, totally legit. Like it really is. It's neat. It's tidy. It's organized. I really likened it to when Mama G and I went to Mobile T Arena in Vegas, like the first year that the Vegas Knights were in the league, and they like made like the Stanley Cup playoffs. Like we were fortunate enough to go there. Apparently, I understand that Rogers Place has the biggest jumbotron in Canada.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing with the hockey arenas, I feel like they're. I don't know if it's changing now, but it feels like they're kind of cookie cutter, where they're not like in the old days. You'd have distinct differences. Maybe the boards would be a little bit less rounded, or there'd be stairs the players would have to walk up, or the boxes would be. I like the intricacies of. That's why I really like baseball fields, and football stadiums for that matter.
Yeah,
because there's these little subtle differences between. I mean, look at a baseball field, and you'll look from field to field. There's differences. I think it's one in Florida, and it has like a bit of an actual hill in the outfield, and like I've been to Fenway, and it's just there's all these differences, and I would like to see more differences in. I mean, I understand they got to keep the ice surface, I guess, the same. But
you want to see individual idiosyncrasies
Totally.
for each stadium, other than this just generic cookie cutter base plate.
Totally, exactly. And I don't mind if there's a little bit of sort of an uncomfortable aspect to it. Like Fenway, I sat in the seats at Fenway in Boston. They're the fucking smallest seats I've ever sat in my life, and I'm not a massive guy. I'm fairly thin, and I couldn't imagine if someone was like putting back some of those fucking lobster rolls and shit that they eat there.
I think it's because people genetically were smaller back in the days
Exactly.
when that was
That's
constructed.
what I mean. That's my point.
But you know what? Like, at least that gave that experience some individualism. Like,
Totally.
you remember how uncomfortable those seats were, but that made it a part of the experience.
Totally. No, it was amazing. I loved it. Fenway's one of the coolest baseball parks I've ever been to.
this is how legit Rogers Place is. You know an arena is legit, right? If you're a manly man, you take your beer to the pisser when you take a slash, right? When you need to go to the washroom, you take your beer if you're a manly man. The urinals have installed a small stainless steel shelf to put your beer on top of the pisser, like on top of the urinal. Like, I was so impressed.
Yeah,
that's
pretty cool.
Yeah, so no more carefully sitting your beer while you're pissed, like on top of the porcelain urinal and balancing it and waiting until like, you know, it's balanced before you can take one hand off. You can comfortably take care of your business. Like at Rogers Place.
That's awesome.
I was totally impressed with that. It's really bougie, like bougie.
Since we're on the topic of urinals, let's do this. Since this is a Manly Man show, let's talk about urinal etiquette.
Oh, I'm in it.
Is it etiquette?
Yeah, let's
etiquette,
go. Etiquette.
There we go.
Urinal etiquette.
101. Now, so Thommo, you tell me, okay, if you've got 5 urinals,
yep,
and there's one guy in the middle one, where do you line up to piss?
As far away from him as I can.
Exactly.
So if we're talking 5 and if going from left to right, if he's at 3, I'm going to 1 or 5. Like I'm leaving at least a urinal space.
If he is at urinal 1, where do you go?
5.
Exactly. And is there any conversation while you're taking a piss?
Never. And you never divert your attention apart from in front of you at either your own junk or the wall.
Exactly.
Like never.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, perfect. I think we got it down.
Have you experienced something where
I get so fucking pissed. So I'll be at the farthest. I'm at urinal 1. Some dude will go line up on urinal 2, and
he's gay.
Fuck, I don't care. I just don't.
No, I don't care either. But like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. And like, if people trying to make small talk now, if they're totally intoxicated,
like, you get a drunk pass.
Yeah, 100%, 100%, you get a drunk pass.
Yeah.
But if they're not, and they're like, hey, big fella, no, I'm not.
Totally.
I
just thought that was a good opportunity because that's one of my fucking pet peeves.
Yeah.
I'm really strict on urinal etiquette.
Now, the only exception to the rule is that if you're going in, and whether you're at a ball game, a football game, or a hockey game, if it's packed, you have to go where the space is.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
So that's the other one. So if you've got someone at urinal 1, 3, and 5, space 2 and 4 are open, you're the only one waiting. Do you jump into the space or do you wait until 1, 3, or 5 are open? No, and there's no line behind you.
No, I jump into the space.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, because I don't want to miss any action, especially from a hockey game.
I guess so.
Look, if I'm busting, there are no rules.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like I'll take a shit in a hand basin if I'm busting, right? Like if I'm busting, there are no rules.
Yeah.
And the other thing about urinal etiquette, if you go into the urinal and you take a piss in the toilet, you got a small dick. I don't care. You have small junk,
or you have what do they call it? Stage fright.
Or well, I don't know. I just think, do you know what? I can give a pass for being drunk. I can give a pass for having stage fright. But if you're a young child, a young boy, I get that.
We're not talking about young boys.
I'm talking
if you're a man.
If you're a man by age and you go to the cubicle to piss, you got a small dick. Just you know what? Just get dirty in the sack. The women don't care. Just seriously, just.
That's funny.
Oh,
no, I won't jump into 2 or 4 myself, but like you said, there is exceptions to those rules.
Okay, COVID conversation, Dusty.
All right.
No, I know. I'm gonna let you take the lead here. I wanna make some observations about things. How do you interact with people if the topic of COVID comes up? Now, let me be specific so you can have a think about this. My personal opinion is that I think you're a very knowledgeable person on the topic. I understand that you're not a medical doctor, but you are in the healthcare industry, okay? So how do you interact with someone who raises the topic who is outside of the medical field that has an opinion which is totally ignorant.
Well, you know what? I don't really push my opinion on people like that. It's like I will, if I find that people are asking me, then I'll give my opinion on it. But I honestly don't go to, I've kind of got to the point where I'm not trying to save anybody anymore with my knowledge. It's like if people are that ignorant and 2 years in, when honestly, if you do 10 minutes of research in the proper, and I'm not talking CBC, Global, CNN. I'm talking go in and actually look for Dr. Peter McCullough or the Malone interview or people that actually have knowledge, and you can see that there's a counter narrative that is actually more in line with real science and with actual truth. And so I don't really, honestly, if someone's that ignorant, I just leave it. It's like, because you're not going to get through them at this point. 2 years in, there's not really much that's going to change them. Like, even with all this Pfizer stuff coming out this week, it's not going to change those people's opinion. They're so deep into what they believe, into the mass psychosis of and delusion of what they feel. You know what I mean?
But do you believe that's what they believe, or do you believe they're lapping it up like a thirsty cat with milk from the mainstream media, which is the narrative that the relevant government wants to push?
Yeah, no, it is that. It is. I think what it is they've heard this. It's on. I mean, I've never seen a virus that has such an effective campaign. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
advertising campaign.
Yep.
Every single day from day one, COVID, mask, COVID, virus, vaccine, COVID, vaccine, virus. Every day. To me, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying that there's nothing, nothing exists, but what I'm saying is if this thing was a real pandemic, this was really killing people, we would know. We wouldn't need advertising. We'd be piling bodies up in the street and then burning them because we wouldn't want that virus to be spreading.
Dusty, in the 2 years that this has been happening, it's officially 2 years this month, I don't personally know anyone that has passed away from COVID or COVID-related symptoms. Like, I personally know no one.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And so I said this to someone the other day, and don't hold me to the numbers, but what I basically said is, through all the measures, all the restrictions, all the lockdowns, all the things we're doing, we've basically killed 6 people to save 1.
Yeah.
So bear with me. So, and like I said, the numbers might not be perfect, but we basically, out of the 6, 2 were overdoses, 1 was a suicide, and 3 were misdiagnoses of cancer, heart disease, and all these other reasons that we could die, right? 1 person maybe died from COVID in that number. You know what I mean? So one person would die of COVID. We've killed 6 by doing all these other extended things that, it's like, it's almost like they didn't do a cost analysis, and not just like financial cost analysis. It's like a cost analysis on society and the ramifications. And I think we probably talked about this right when it started. Like, we were saying these things like 2 years ago, like suicides are going to be through the roof. Don't they see this? Overdoses are going to be through the roof. Don't they see this? If you're not getting in for your appointments, you're not going to catch that stage 1 cancer. You're going to wait until 2022, and then now it's stage 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Right. And so all these, and then we get into the social aspects of the masking and all this shit we're doing to our kids, right? These younger kids not getting that facial recognition for communication.
Do you know what? That was one of the most, what's the word I'm looking for? It was just so refreshing to see people's faces when I was in West Edmonton Mall and there were so many people not wearing a mask, just to see their faces from every different culture, every different skin color. It was so refreshing to me to see people's faces again.
Totally.
Yeah.
You humanize people again by seeing their face. You dehumanize people when you take their face away.
Yeah. I once again, like, we have these deep conversations, and not only when you and I are interacting on a personal nature, but when we're interacting now, I mean, I'm listening to what you're saying. You're a good dude. You're a solid dude that operates with the highest level of morals and values. And I know that whatever you say, it's generally what you believe, and you've researched it. So to the best of your knowledge, you believe that in every fiber that you are. And so when you said that, like that dehumanizing aspect, and there were studies that you mentioned, I believed it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's just, you don't, like, I don't think I'm I don't think myself or anybody that's been sort of saying this stuff from the start, we're any smarter, we're more intelligent. It's like, I almost feel it. If it was a gut feeling from the start that there was something that was off.
Yeah.
And that the ramifications of what we were doing, because people will say you're selfish. I got called a narcissist this week for my belief. I deeply care about people, and that's why I'm so vocal about this and why I'm resisting so hard, because I see these like really massively long-term detrimental effects of all the things we're doing. Bonnie Henry coming out and acting like she's some like our grandma. She's so sweet and innocent, but she's doing these horrific things. And I don't know if it's intentional or if it's unintentional, and it's just, or it's political now and it's got past who she is, but it's massively damaging, and we're seeing these things, and we're going to continue to see them for 20 years.
Yeah.
These kids that are wearing masks now on a 6 to 8 hour basis and getting shit injected into them, we have no idea what the long-term effects. This is going to affect our society for a generation or two. And I don't understand how people don't see this. To me, it's like, I see the deer on the highway. I see it. There's a deer there. Can you not see the deer? And most people just run right to the deer.
Yeah.
Their freaking grills all mashed now.
The reason why I brought this up is that I had, it came up during a conversation I had with a person this week, and we were discussing myself potentially traveling to Australia this year so I could see my daughter. And this person was advising me that the Adelaide transmission rates had increased as people were not wearing masks and social distancing in Mad March in Adelaide. And so what Mad March is it's the festival season. They have a lot of plays, a lot of comedians. They cordon off a park downtown, and they call it the Unearthly Delights. And they have a lot of shows there, right? So there's obviously a lot of congestion of people in a localized area. And so I got into discussing that Dr. McCulloch explained that masks only capture a 3 micron particulate, and that COVID is a 1 micron particulate. So, like, how does a mask prevent you from contracting COVID? And now, I get Dr. McCulloch is one person, but he is the most published professional in his area in the history of his particular specialty. Mm-hmm. So how can you ignore that information?
Oh, exactly.
So
exactly. Like I said earlier, like it's basically like kicking a beach ball through your door. Like a beach ball would be maybe a third of the size of your door.
100%. Like 100%. So I went on to explain to this person that Alberta and Manitoba have opened their provinces where you not have to wear masks or so show proof of vaccination now. And this person said to me, well, Australia has opened back up to international travel. And I asked them, like, to explain to me what their definition of opening back up meant. And, like, they said to me, you're allowed to travel to Australia if you have been double vaxxed. Now, I'm vaccinated. I really want everyone to know that I am vaccinated. And to me, I'm like, that is not opened back up. That is medical segregation. Okay, that's not opening it back up to December 2019, where you could freely travel the globe and enter countries with just your passport of citizenship. That to me is not opened back up. I explained to this person that vaccination does not stop you from getting the virus, and that the data proves it only reduces the severity of the symptoms. It does not stop you from getting COVID or prevent death. And so I said to this person, I said, like, just out of curiosity, when do you think the world should open back up? To circa November 2019. Okay, so December 2019 is the last time I saw Sugar Girl. It is the last time I have set foot on soil where I was born. And they said, I don't have an opinion on when the world should open back up. And I'm like, you don't have an opinion? Like, you don't have a personal opinion? And they responded, when the Prime Minister of Australia says so. Now, I said to this person, I'm not asking about what you think the Prime Minister is recommending. I'm asking you personally, do you have an opinion about when the world should open back up? And their response to me was no. Why should I have an opinion about the world? I am just one person. And this is the issue I take with that, Dusty. You should have an opinion because you are a person living on planet Earth. You are a free person. That is why you should have an opinion.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. We have this weird thing that we've done where and I'm saying we as a society, not me and you, but I'm saying we've given too much power to people and acting like the government is our boss or our parent. And
That's
you know what
good.
I mean?
That's good.
Right? Well, no, we are the free people. We are the bosses. And we make the rules. We're the ones that elect these people. That's why I have a problem with Bonnie Henry in BC dictating to us because she's not even elected. She's been put into place by the politicians, right? For political reasons. So where are the checks and balances for someone like that?
I agree.
Right? Like, so she can just keep, there's nothing, there's nowhere that we can just say, no, we don't like what she's doing anymore. She needs to go. 5 million people in BC. 3 million of us could have a problem with her. How does she keep being allowed to do what she's doing? You know what I mean?
I do.
And it's, I don't know. I have a major problem with that. And I just feel like maybe people just like to be in that child position where they don't have to make decisions because when they have to make decisions, they have to have accountability to the decisions they make.
Do you know what? I think it comes down to whether you're a driver or a passenger. Yeah. And I'll go on to explain
100%.
that. So when you're a driver of a motor vehicle that has passengers, you take responsibility for yourself and everyone's health and safety in that motor vehicle when you're a driver. And when you're a passenger, you don't have to worry about the responsibility of being a driver. And I really question whether there are people in this society or in your local community that are just happy with being passengers. Now, I'm personally not.
Yeah, no, I'm the same as
right?
you. I want to be a fucking driver.
I want to be a driver. I want to influence change. Yeah. I want to be responsible for people, and maybe it's just because of my own personal experience with how my father treated me and the behavior and the actions that he exhibited on me. Maybe it is. I don't know, but I want my kids to question everything. Totally. Question everything until you get to the truth. The truth is always the same, no matter who's fucking telling it. The truth is the same. So find the truth. Don't question. I remember having this conversation at dinner, and I remember Bake Boss saying to me she hated that bad orange man down in the US. And I'm like, well, why do you hate that person? Because he puts children in cages. And I'm like, whoa. How do you know that? Because I saw it on TikTok. Wait a sec. You saw on TikTok that bad orange man down in the US has put people in cages. Yep. They took that as gospel. And I said, okay, so these are the facts. That wasn't his administration that did that. That was the Obama administration before him that put that in place. And that was because the Mexican drug cartels were using, they were human trafficking. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's why they did that. They did it so that there were checks and balances so they could understand who was illegally coming across the border or not through an appropriate port of entry into the country, and who was with their actual family and who was being used as mules, essentially mules. Yep. They didn't know that. I said, so what I want you to take from this conversation is question everything. If you see something on social media, if you see, fuck it, I'm just going to say it, Charlie D'Amelio, say something, question it. Yeah. Because how do you know that person is not being influenced by financial gain or by goods and services? Like, question everything. Like, I think that comedian, and I didn't know this at the time because I only remember him from Bill and Ted, George Carlson. Question everything that the government does.
Yeah, well, even when, because I get criticized for being too open with my kids about the world. They're 9 and 11 years old. My way of looking at it is I'm counteracting what the rest of the world is feeding my kids. Then I have a conversation with them. Even question me. I have no problem with my children questioning me. Go do the research. Now I've given you a balanced sort of back and forth with what you've heard about this topic. Now you go make your own decision, because at the end of the day, even though my child is 11 years old, she's going to be 20 years old at some point, 30 years old at some point. And for me to sugarcoat the world for her and make lies and say, oh, no, it's not, or it's not your place. We had a whole generation of kids where it wasn't their place to talk, and look where we're at. They're clueless, a lot of people, right? And they're ignorant, and they just believe CNN. Brought to you by Pfizer, right?
I agree, man.
Literally, watch a CNN newscast, and you'll hear brought to you by Pfizer.
I make it a huge point out of talking to our kids about real life. And so I will talk to them about what's happening in the world and what my interpretation of that is. And I make it a big point of talking about money as well, because I think money is something that people shun, especially in front of their kids. I want our kids to know, if you want to wear a Nike hoodie, it costs $100 Canadian.
Yeah.
But you could buy 3 of those hoodies from Costco, okay? Or it cost, I don't know, $1.2 million Canadian to buy a detached house in the Langley district. That's what it costs. They need to know this, because I don't want them to be scared.
Well, that's a really good point, because it's like, I always remember, like, you don't talk about the budget or this about the kid, but if the kids actually see, oh my gosh, you have to put out this much money to run a family in a month. Yeah, that's actually a really important lesson to teach them.
That didn't come from me. That came from a person that I worked with. Yeah. His name was Pete, and even though I only sat next to him for like 6 to 9 months, he did teach me some valuable life lessons, and he said the same thing. So I will say to the kids, when we go down to Australia, how much do you think the airfare was to go to Australia? How much do you think the food was per day to eat? Because obviously when you travel, the biggest expense is food.
Yeah.
Right. If you can't, that's why I love Airbnb. I wish I could go back 10 years and invest in Airbnb like when it first kicked off, right? When it was a startup. But I say to them, how much do you think the meal was? $30. It was $150. Yeah. For 5 people to eat and to have a couple of sodas or even booze. Yeah. It's $150. And they're like mind blown when you tell them like the numbers, or like I will say to them, they'll be like, well, why haven't you gone down and seen Sugargill? And I'm like, because like mid-COVID, the airfares were $10,000 returned, because they had to social distance on the plane. Jet fuel was the same price, and they weren't selling as many tickets. But they had to cover overhead. You don't skimp on paying the pilot
or the fuel,
or you don't put like RON 89 octane in the plane, right? You still have to. There are still certain overheads. But I don't shy away from them. I want them to know. Like, I will tell anyone how much we paid for our house, how much it's worth now, how much. I don't say how much we earn. Yeah. Right? That is where I draw the line. But to me, people want to know that. Like, how much did it cost to renovate? How much did it cost to buy those Nike sneakers?
I think that's really important, man. I didn't think of it this deeply before, but it's like maybe this is why most of us adults are financial morons. You know, like if you were talking about finances even as a kid, it's rolling through your brain over the years until you actually start to earn money, and then you're like, I've already thought about this. Like, what is it going to cost to do this? We're in general. I know there's people that are terrible at saving, terrible at planning, terrible at investing, right? Yep. I think maybe I'm totally wrong, but I think people are very good at spending as soon as they get, and they live month to month, and they're just living. Yeah, they're living month to month. They're living on their paychecks, and if they have excess, they go buy it on a trip or do something with it without any planning behind it.
Like, do you know what? They're not even living month to month. They're probably living week to week.
Oh yeah.
And I forget the actual numbers, but I remember Tony Robbins. I remember listening to Tony Robbins and him saying this. Like, if you're 18 and if you invest $28,000, like, so $2,800 a year for 10 years, that $28,000 by the time you're 28 is like something like $1 million by the time that you retire for a $28,000 investment. Yeah. these are the things I think we need to be talking to our kids about. Like, I think it's great that if you're an Elon Musk and you want to develop rockets, and if you want to develop travel to Mars, and you want to develop photon engines or whatever, then you need calculus. You need differential calculus and integral calculus and all that good stuff, right, that you need. But if you're the average person, like IQ 90 to 110, you should be learning budgets. You should be learning about compound interest. Like, what does a vehicle loan cost you? What does a home loan cost you? The only reason why I know what I know about those topics is because I fucking asked our accountant. I have lost my ego and I have said, I don't know what I don't know. So I'm going to ask you 100 dumb questions, and I don't feel bad about it, Dusty.
Yeah.
I ask these questions, and when they tell me, I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Explain it to me another way. Explain it to me. This is my saying. Explain it to me like I'm a 6-year-old. Because when it comes to specialty accounting, when it comes to specialty legal services, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's not my field of expertise. So when I'm talking with these professionals, I ask 100 dumb questions, but what my ability is, I believe, I have surrounded myself and Mama G with smart people.
Yeah.
And we pay for that privilege, but I've surrounded us with smart people to grow our wealth.
Yeah, and I think that's actually the key to being successful in life is we don't have all the answers. Anyone that says they are, you're gonna stumble in some ways. I mean, if you're maybe you can. Maybe there's 1 or 2 people out there that can know it all and do it all.
Hey, seriously, if you know all the answers, you're a fucking billionaire.
Totally.
Like, you are a billionaire.
Totally.
If you know all the answers.
But you can still be a multi-millionaire and be smart about it and surround yourself with people that are experts in those areas.
Well, think about how much money do you actually need? Like,
not a lot.
Like this is why I'm telling you now, I fucking love Dr. Jordan Peterson. I fucking love him. I'm going to bawl my eyes out because he is one of my heroes. When I meet him in May 2nd, in Vancouver, if I don't, I'm going to be disappointed in myself, right? Because he says, think about your life and what you practically need. If you practically have everything that you need in 3 years, where are you going to be? Write that shit out. And if you don't get that, where are you going to be? Now, I know practically, Dusty, and he actually says, don't say win $100 million on the cross lotto, because the likelihood of that happening is so low. But think about everything that you need. Now, I know I haven't done this, and this is what I yet to do. I've done his personality test, his finding myself. Super interesting. 100 questions. It took me 10 minutes. Cost me $14. Right? Super interesting. Gave me a line in the sand of what my personality type was and where the areas are that I can improve. But I know that if I don't have anything that I need in the next 2 years, I'm on fucking East Hastings. I fucking know that. And do you know what? That scares the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
Right? I am in a tent. I am addicted to a substance. I have little self-worth. I have no perception of what's around me. And I'm just looking for my next hit.
Yeah.
That's a fucking scary place to be.
Yeah.
That is super scary to me. And so do you know what? I fucking run as fast as I can and as far as I can for as long as I can from that.
Yeah.
I fucking love Dr. Jordan Peterson. I love him, and I don't care. There are plenty of people hanging shit on Joe Rogan right now. He is one of my heroes as well.
Totally. Yeah, he's great.
I would love to get either of those guys on this podcast. And
for sure.
I don't care if I had to... you're fucked because you're not vaxxed, so you're not going to be able to go down to the States.
Oh, and Rogan can't come up here.
And he can't... Look, 2 years in a row now, Mama G has bought me tickets to Joe Rogan's 420 show.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been able to come up here. He couldn't come up, obviously, last year because the year before last because the restrictions were so high, and then he couldn't do it last year, and he can't do it, obviously, this year coming up because the Canadian government know that he's not vaccinated. But I'm telling you, Dusty... like, you can fly internal Canada, Dr. Jordan Peterson, if you're listening to this. Like, if you would come on our show, I will fly to you. Dusty and I will drive.
Yeah.
We will drive to I don't care how much gas it costs. I would love to have you guys on the show because I'm interested in you guys.
Yeah.
I'm
awesome.
like, especially Dr. Peterson, because obviously being a clinical psychologist, he has done the research and he has the vernacular. Like, whenever I listen to something that he's done, I got to listen to it 2 or 3 times.
For sure.
I have to be promised to even comprehend what he's saying. I have to listen to it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. No.
So going back to this conversation I had with this person, one of the questions that I posed to them was, if they don't have an opinion about when the world should open back up, what governs their decisions now? What governs their day-to-day decisions? And they said, I make decisions based on my best health interest. I think that's the truth. I think that's exactly what you should do. And that is how I believe you should make health decisions. But what you need to understand is what may be good for you is not what is good for someone else. Okay? So what if someone else's health decisions, what's best for them is, I don't want to wear a mask and I don't want to have to show a vaccination passport, and I will risk, if I encounter COVID, I will risk the health decisions. That's what I think the biggest to and fro is that there are people that are vaccinated that are saying these people should be vaccinated because it's going to alleviate that. I don't think that that's right. I think like the chances of you encountering COVID are low. Like in the scheme of things, that like the numbers, the datas are low. I don't know exactly what they are, so I'm not going to say it. But understand that if you're vaccinated, just because what's good for you doesn't mean that's what's good for the next person, and you can't push that opinion. It's like religion. Yeah. You cannot push that on someone else.
Not in a free society. Not if you want your society to be truly free, you can't pick and choose your freedoms, right? You can't pick. Oh, well, that works for me, but it doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work for me, but I don't care if it works for you.
Well, once again, it's like what you said before, Dusty. Where's the checks and balances? Like, so what happens if you have a person that says, like, I'm vaccinated, that is best, and then someone saying, I'm not vaxxed, that is best? Well, like, what are we gonna have a fucking Kirk versus Spock duel to the death?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that's not practical. I mean, at the end of the day, I think everyone can agree COVID is in the community. Right? It's never going to go away, but I want to know, when are we all going to return to normal and start living our life again? Because I personally became depressed not living my life, living to these restrictions.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not trying to like one up you or anything, but being an unvaxxed person has been extremely hard in the last 6 months because anyone that I know that's going through the same thing as me, it's like we have been absolutely ostracized from everything. I can't watch my son play hockey league without even. I had to sneak in for 2. I've snuck into 2 games, and I get vilified for going in to watch my own son play hockey, and I'm 30 feet from everybody else. Not going to restaurant. Your friends can go into a restaurant and say, "Sorry, you got to stay at the door." Not going into a hockey game. Watch your favorite team who you've watched since you were 5 years old. They won't let you in. They'll wave a flag for every other demographic and every other cause. But when actual discrimination has happened, the Canucks won't stand up and say, no, this isn't right.
Wait a second. This is what I always say when we go out to dinner. And I know this might be the pot calling the kettle black, and I'm not trying to be contradictory here, but when we go out to dinner, we have to enter the venue with a mask. Then we get seated at our table and we take our mask off. My joke is I will always say, and now we are safe. Because we're not. Yeah. We are not safe. Like take the West Edmonton Mall thing where people are in the water park area. They were like touching one another with no mask on. If this was dangerous, if this was a serious, like if this was like the Black Plague or like something like that, people would be dying all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that I really do have sympathy and empathy for people that personally know someone that has passed away from COVID-induced symptoms.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, this isn't what we're talking about. Yeah, we
correct.
both agree on that. Of course, every death is important. Every death is tragic. Every death is sad. What I'm saying is that we can't kill 6 to save 1, and that's what's happened here. And it's like, like with you sitting saying you sit at the table at the restaurant. Well, in actual, theoretically, it's actually more dangerous at the table because there's more surface contact.
Correct.
Right? When you're walking around, you're actually probably safer because the air is flowing past your face.
But
Right?
And take it another step further, how do I know, and not that this would ever happen, but how do I know the chef or the server hasn't spat in my food and they have symptoms? They've just said, I want to watch the world burn. I'm going to hock a loogie in this person's food. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So I'm at more risk from taking, like, if it was so serious, Dusty, there should be no eating out. But that's going to cause more issues because then there's going to be less tax, there's going to be less revenue for the government. And that's why, personally, I feel that this is a political agenda.
Absolutely. Liquor store, provincial liquor store.
Yep.
Everybody's touching bottles, walking through. You got grubbies in there, touching things. When's the last time that you had cracked a beer can open and you sanitized the top of your beer can?
Okay.
Even pre-COVID.
I'll take you one step further. When you're going into the local supermarket or the local Save-On or the local wherever, and they have the plastic covering the FPOS machine and they're not cleaning it in between customers.
Well, at the start, do you remember when they had the saran wrap on there?
Yes. Do you know what? There is one sushi place near us, and I can tell you each time they change the saran wrap, each time with the FPOS machine, the card machine.
Well, at least they're being consistent then, because I was going to say...
No, 100%. And I actually said to them, I've seen it. They actually get the saran wrap in front of you. They pull it off the roll. They wrap the machine. And I actually said to them, do you know what? Good for you that you're actually abiding by the mandate and changing the saran wrap. And then they discard it after the use, because that's... If you were doing it seriously, that's how you would do it. You wouldn't leave it like the same... long-term use plastic sheet or cover or sleeve that they do on probably 90% of they're not even cleaning it with like a sanitary wipe. No. And even though we know COVID isn't transmitted from surface to surface, that's been proven, the data has proven it. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm not a healthcare professional, but I'm just going off of what...
This is just common sense. This is common... And you know what? This is science, because science is questioning. That's the problem I've had with this whole the science. The science isn't science. Science is where you're questioning it, and you question it even when you think you know the right answer. You keep questioning things.
But you keep questioning it until the facts show themselves.
The facts, 100% show themselves, right? Not just like, well, this might... I remember back in... Did I talk about this last time? I can't remember. About when I was in chemistry. And we used to have to pipette out and add chemicals, and it would be like this pH balance. And when it turned to a certain balance, it would... either go white or clear, or it would be pink. I can't remember what it was, but you'd have to get the number right. When I do my calculations, they were never on. So what I'm saying is science isn't as clear cut as we think it is. It's questioning, and it's repeating, and it's repeating, and it's repeating, and doing the same experiments over and over and over until you get the right data. The fact that they come out and say this is a definite thing, that the numbers in the hospital show this, you don't even have enough time to analyze the data to tell me that unvaccinated are more risk to the society. You need time to analyze data.
Correct.
You have to collect the data in a non-biased way, which I don't know how that would be in a hospital setting when you have people that might have, you know what I mean? I'm using my hands here, but I'm basically saying that they might have reasons. Like when you do let me go back. When you do a study, there are very strict guidelines to do in a proper study that will be in a peer-reviewed high-end journal like The Lancet or something like that.
And that's what Dr. Malone was talking about when he was on JRE.
Yeah. So you have to have something called double-blinded for sure. So the people collecting the data have to be unaware of what the results that they're looking for in the study, what they're testing. The subjects have to be unaware, right? And you can't have a company that has financial gain to make.
Or a vested interest.
Vested interest, exactly. Yep. And when you collect the data, you analyze, you calculate it, and then you put it out. And the people that are running the study will take the data that's been analyzed, and then they're the ones that will interpret it and say, this is what we see. This wasn't what we expected, or this is what we expected. And then now you have a proper study, and it gets reviewed. And when they say peer-reviewed journal, it means you can't just submit a study and it just gets accepted. You get reviewed by high-end people. So Dr. Peter McCullough, where he's been cited, he's a reviewer. That reviews these studies. So you have high-end people that have done studies themselves that have to review a study to accept it. We haven't had enough time to and with some of this stuff to actually know what we're actually looking at yet.
Like, do you know what like gets me, like, which is exactly what you're saying? There are some people, or there are some YouTubers or other medical professionals that have come out after Dr. McCullough and Dr. Malone went on JRE.
Yeah.
I haven't fucking seen those people go on JRE to dispute it.
No, exactly.
So let's just pretend, because I'm a logical person. If you want to win an argument with me, win it with logic, right? Don't win it with emotion. If there were people out there that truly believed what Dr. McCullough and Dr. Malone were saying was horseshit, why the fuck haven't they gone on JRE, prioritized their time, and said for X, Y, and Z reasons what they were talking about was horseshit? I haven't seen anyone.
Totally. Well, actually, I've thought about this idea. So if Joe Rogan ever does listen to this podcast, here's an idea. It's going to be like a TED Talk. It's going to be a debate series. For a 1 week duration, you're going to get the two fucking stallions from each side. You pick your guys, I pick my guys. So we got McCullough and Malone on one side, and Fauci and Bill Nye, the fucking science guy, on the other side.
The Russian spy.
Or Greta Thunberg, even better, because she's an expert at everything. You do opening statements, boom, boom, this is what we're arguing on. The next day, one group will present their lecture. Let's say on the Tuesday, and the Wednesday, the next group presents their lecture. On Thursday, it's an open debate.
And then Friday, it's fight night.
Yeah, exactly. And then Friday is actually open questions from the public that's paid per view.
Yep. Let's do it.
And they have to answer it. And then on the Saturday is a decision where everybody votes in from the public because they've all watched this and they've seen the data. And now, and every topic too, not just on COVID. Let's do fucking climate change.
Yep.
Let's do the gun debate.
Let's do it.
You know what I mean?
I do.
Like I've been saying, like you. Joe Rogan would be the guy to moderate this shit too.
Absolutely.
It would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be.
And you can make money. Like I said, pay-per-view. I would pay to watch that shit.
I would, but I don't even think it's about money. I think it's about getting the truth out to the community.
Yeah. Like TED Talk debates. They need to do it.
I agree.
Yeah. Anyways, sidebar.
So I seen on a buddy's Facebook post recently that Australia is introducing digital vaccination passports. Where is this going to stop? The government are just slowly taking away our freedoms one by one, and they're just using like the frog in the boiling pot analogy, which I think is what you said a couple of podcasts ago, Dusty. Like we were coming back from Edmonton, and the airline was giving out sanitized wipes as you boarded the aircraft, right? And they were complimentary. Now, I found it interesting because the data shows that COVID is not transmitted through surface contact. Like, they prove that. But if it was necessary, why has this process not been in place like previously, before COVID? Like any airlines that you had boarded pre-December 2019, like if this was a protocol that was about your health and keeping you safe and healthy, like why would that have not been in place before? Like we've done just fine up until March 2020.
Well, and that's it. Like really, if you look at immunity, you want to be exposed to things. Because if you don't get exposed to them, then your body doesn't develop a resistance to it.
Correct.
Right? So I personally think people that use sanitizer probably have a less bulky immune system, a less, thriving immune system because they don't have growing up in the 80s, I'll go back to that. It was fucking I didn't have a 5-second rule. I had a 4-day rule. And we played in the dirt. Sometimes I didn't wash my hands when I came in for lunch. What a pain in the ass. I got to get back. Like I said, I wanted to eat my food and get back out. I've eaten a sandwich with grubby hands a lot.
I'm sure every oil worker in Alberta does as well.
Totally. And I bet they don't get sick very often.
I bet they don't either.
Right.
So, but going back to the digital vaccination passports, and you can just put your opinion in, Dusty, but where does it stop? Honestly, where does it stop? We have done just fine up until March 2020, having a passport that has been produced by your country of citizenship to enter any other country, and now we're talking about vaccination passport. Who checks and balances this?
Exactly. So what I see this going to is a social credit system, as what they tested this. That's what I see this vaccine passport as. A social. You behave like a good little boy or girl, you get X, Y, and Z privileges. You didn't behave, unvaccinated dirtball, so you don't get those privileges. You don't get to watch the Canucks. Sorry, that doesn't happen for you. You don't get. They didn't take away essential stuff yet. They didn't take away the food. They didn't take away your ability to be protected or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They took away those pleasantries.
But wait a second. You're still paying tax, Dusty.
Exactly.
You're still paying tax on the income that you earn. So the government are quite happy to keep taking your tax money away from you, but they're taking away your freedoms as well.
Yeah, freedom. And people say, well, it's not your freedom. A restaurant isn't a freedom. It's a privilege. It's like, well, no, I don't agree with that. We're in a society where we should all be, because you wouldn't disallow, or you shouldn't disallow somebody, let's say, of a certain skin color or a religion or a sexual orientation from going in a restaurant. Well, they're not harming. Well, you know what I mean? It's all this relativity that they're trying to say, well, it's because you might make us more sick. Well, no, we've proven that that's not the case. We can give it, pass it, share it the same way, and all of us can get it. And we all probably did have it at Christmas for the most part, right? So that excuse is you're more of a well, no, we're not more of a threat. We've proven that. So why do you keep doing this?
But wait a second, it shouldn't matter if you're earning money for you, or you're generating revenue in a capitalist society, which I believe in. That's up to fucking you where you decide to spend that money. So if you are earning $500,000 a year. That's like someone saying, well, you shouldn't buy a Ferrari because that's a luxury. No, motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's for you to decide where you spend that money. So if you're generating wealth for yourself or earning money, you get to take your wife out or your girlfriend out to a restaurant because you're the one sacrificing your time to earn that. So who is it?
Yeah,
no one else is allowed to tell you how to fucking spend the money that you earn.
Yeah, or the thing that, you're gonna, we're just protecting you. Okay, so I shouldn't be able to spend money on going skydiving or smoking or drinking, or if I'm willing. That's what being in a free fucking country is about. If I want to do and take the risks that I want to take, and it's on me, why the fuck are you telling me what to do? And I don't. People think I'm being selfish by not being vaxxed and not wearing masks and doing my thing and saying fuck that. I'm not gonna be put into a box. I'm a free man in a free country, and I'm not gonna give that away so my kids don't have that.
Yep.
This isn't about me. People might think, oh, you're selfish, and the people like you are so. No, most of the people I talk to that have the same opinion, it's for our children, it's for our future, it's for people we don't even know. It's to not go down that avenue where digital vaccine passes or a passport, just in general social credit system is put in place where if I jaywalk, I get 14 demerits against me, and now all my finances are digitalized, and you can find me and take away money that I've earned. Right? This is where this is going.
100%.
Right?
What about all the GoFundMe people who have had their accounts frozen because they contributed to the Truckers' Freedom Rally?
100%. So I said this today actually to my parents. I said, and they agree with me. And I said, for the people that don't see they should be fucking absolutely frightened that the fact that happened, that the government could say, we deem this as being wrong. Hey, TD, freeze these people's accounts. They went to a private business that you've invested your own money in and they freezed your assets because you didn't behave the way they wanted. And you can believe what you want about Ottawa. It was fucking bouncy castles and hugs and fucking flags being waved, right? And the government, thank God, and one thing that came out of this, and you can jump in too if you want, but the Senate, props to the senators in Canada. That'll be my shout out of the week. The senators in Canada, thank you, fucking thank you for being true to justice, because that is the only reason we didn't have an emergency act in place right now, because of our senators. That little worm, Justin Trudeau, saw that the Senate was going to override his draconian measures, and he bailed out to try to save face. Right? So thank you so much to the senators. Obviously, I don't know if any of you be listening to this, but if you are, if you guys know anybody, thank you so much, because I was losing faith in the justice of this, system in this country, and you guys, you stood up for Canadians. So thank you.
It's interesting that you said before about the overuse of, say, hand sanitizing or sanitization, because when I boarded the airlines when we flew back from Edmonton to here, the chick that I was sitting next to, she must have sanitized her hands at least 7 times during the flight. And she did it twice before we took off. Like, I have no idea why. I don't know if it's maybe just a personal measure that she took, but I highly doubt it. But I personally don't think that's healthy for a person to be getting rid of all the germs or all the bacteria that are on you, because surely wouldn't over sanitizing, would that not lead to a decrease in your body's immunity to fight foreign viruses and nasties?
Absolutely. So I always say it's like if you got a football field and you got 2 teams on there, you've got the good team and the bad team. Well, when you use sanitizer or you use antibiotics inside your system, you're not only wiping out the good team, you're wiping out the bad team.
Mm.
So if now the bad team is able to get back on that surface and there's less good team on there, they're going to be able to overwhelm that system, right? That's why I always say when people do like antibiotics, always make sure you're doing probiotics to replenish your good guys after you take an antibiotic, right? And that's the thing with the sanitizer. You're not really, there's nothing you're rubbing on. It's almost like we need maybe a probiotic rub on your hands to like replenish the things that are on the surface of your skin to replenish that. Because if you're using sanitizer or alcohol wipes or whatever over and over and over, you're wiping everything off. That could be your first defense is on your skin, right? And if you wipe out the first line of defense, then you're more susceptible to. You're absolutely right.
I thought that might have been the case, but once again, that's and I'm not trying to wear a tinfoil hat, but I really wonder is that overuse of sanitization is drying out your skin, which means that you've got to use then a moisturizer, which is making you more dependent on consumer products.
That's it too.
I don't know.
I've been actually changing my opinion on sunscreen and stuff too. Like honestly, like I haven't used sunscreen in 5 years, and I haven't burned.
I did the first summer I was here, so I am going to use it until I don't. I burned on my foot.
I think the key is if you have pasty white skin, like Irish skin, like I do, you want to. I've learned my frequency in the early season of what I can do, and then as I slowly build up that, and I'm not giving you medical advice to go like say, oh, you said not to use sunscreen. Go research it. There's lots of chemicals and shit in that sunscreen, and your skin does absorb. Just because it's on your skin doesn't mean it stays out of your body, right? It absorbs through the skin. So if you just, once in a while, I'm not saying like if you do a one-off, but if you're chronically slathering on sunscreen over your life, there's a buildup, and then your liver's having to detox, all that stuff, right? So just being aware.
Okay, I'm gonna dedicate this segment to my 2 daughters. My wife has totally redefined what my perception of love is. In this moment, as much as I can allow her to, she is slowly but surely replacing all the love that my father took away from me or wasn't able to provide me when I was growing up. And I want everyone to know, so you can fact check this, that humans, or we are only born with two fears. One is a fear of loud noises, and the second is a fear of falling. Those are the only two fears that we're born with. These are genetically pre-programmed responses into all animals to keep us safe. And basically that is the fight, flight, or freeze response. All other fears that you know of are learned behaviors or come from someone or something, whether they be parents, school teachers, friends, or trusted sources. Like, they all come from someone else. They are not programmed into you. They come from somewhere. And I just really want everyone to sort of be aware of that. So do yourself a favor and go and listen to the song This Is Me by Keela Settle. And it's from the Greatest Showman soundtrack. Let your children hear this, because there is no shame in being the truest version of yourself in life. It honestly, it's who you are meant to be. And I'm just going to play this now real quick. Let's see if we can get this on.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. Sharp words wanna cut me down. I'm gonna sing a blood, gonna drown 'em out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come.
I really love the live podcast stuff, Dusty, because I don't know if that was the best audio, but seriously, do yourself a favor and listen to that, and let your kids listen to that. I really think that that song is truly powerful in that there is no shame in being like who you are. I remember speaking in episode 2 about Mama G, and I spoke about her armor and my armor, and I'm just so grateful that she fights for me every damn day, showing me that I'm worthy, like, to be loved. Besides Sugar Girl, who is my biological daughter, who loves me unconditionally, and that's because of genetics, because there is this attachment theory that was discovered by John Bowlby in 1988. His work, A Secure Base, details this. Everyone else in my life has a choice to love me. And Mama G goes into battle every day for me. For my love, she shows me that I am indeed lovable by someone outside of my genetic code. And I'm really grateful for that. Starting this podcast from the embryonic discussion to execution on episode 1 took 7 days. From Dusty and I text messaging about this to then talking points that we could talk about, the equipment that was required, recording it, editing it, everything came within 7 days. And from that,
I learned that you could achieve big goals you set if you're willing to commit to them, and that your own mind can be a jail of progress if you let it. So surround yourself with people who will be happy for you, that will build you up, but will also give you honest feedback if you have or if you do fuck up. I think that's crucially important. Like, if people around you are criticizing you for like your efforts or tearing you down when you've triumphed, really question why you're hanging around them. The amount of time I've wasted letting my own perception of fear hold me back from ventures is ridiculous. However, every time I have consciously chose to commit to a venture, I've gotten the opposite from what my perception was. I've always gotten traction. I've moved forward. And that's not to say that I haven't been without my setbacks. But those one or two setbacks there has been 9 to 10 positives that have happened. But you can tend to get trapped by the one or two negatives, and the 10 positives seem to have been forgotten. Like, do you find that, Dusty?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just a personality type too. But for myself, I've always been hard, and I hyper focus on that one or two negative people in my life. One or two, the people that we've talked about this too. The people that might not be championing you. You're focusing on trying to make them happy, or the things that you feel like you've done wrong. You're focusing on that instead of the 10, like you said, the 10 things that you've done right, or the 10 people that think you're awesome, right? You're trying to make that one person happy instead of focusing. Oh, everybody else is saying, "Oh, you're awesome." You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's relationships, and it's just in your own personal goals and successes and failures. I don't know why that is. I mean, that's why we need Jordan Peterson on here. He would be able to address this better than myself.
Like, I agree. I don't know if it's just society. I remember there's been articles written about Einstein, and I think I said this last podcast that he was lecturing a class and he wrote 10 problems up on a board, and he on purposely got like the 10th problem wrong on purpose, and then everyone giggled and made fun, and he said, "Hey, why did you do that? Like, I got the first 9 right, but everyone in this class focused on the one thing that I got wrong."
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard thing to break. Like, being human nature, I think it really is a hard thing to break. When I'm talking about like focusing on the positives, I'll tell you a story. Like, so I had the opportunity to meet Steve Ranella, but I chose to meet my future wife. And what had happened is that on the trip that I met Mama G, the person I was traveling with, who we would both had the opportunity to meet, Steve Ranella, we're traveling up to Seattle because he lives in Washington State. And I met Mama G in Vegas 2 days before we were due to fly out to meet Steve Ranella. And it was so profound that I left my buddy at Seattle International Airport and I caught a flight to Vancouver to see Mama G. And it is exactly what Sean Maguire, who was played by Robin Williams, said to Will in Good Will Hunting, except I was not as cool as Robin Williams' character was, and said, "I have to go see about a girl." I don't regret not meeting Steve. I had the opportunity to make a life with someone, and I took that chance. Look, maybe in a future podcast we'll go over the whole story.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, sincerely, Steve, it'd be great to meet you at some stage, but I don't regret one moment of that decision, not meeting Steve Ranella, like, at all. Tomorrow is promised to no one, and my neighbors are lovely people.
And probably about 1 month before Christmas, I started to notice that their yard was unkept and that one of their cars wasn't moving out of the driveway and that their kids were being taken to school by someone else. And I remember speaking to Mama G about whether I should go over there and just see if everything was okay, like if everything was all right with their family. There was, I don't know, call it a spidey sense. There were certain things that I started noticing that weren't consistent with the way that certain things were presented before Christmas. I come to find out just before Christmas that my neighbour's husband died the Thursday before Christmas. They'd flown down to the US at the start of December, I think, for advanced treatment. And unfortunately, he passed away. And it really got me thinking on how awful it would be losing your partner, especially at that time of year and in a country away from your support network, like during COVID. I don't even know how you get through that. I mean, how do you get a person back to their home country for family and friends to pay their respects, like during this, time of insanity? And I'm gonna be honest, like, not only like did Joe Rogan and Dr. Jordan Peterson help, but like that reflection of that situation really allowed me to reflect and try harder in all areas of my life. And to be honest, if I can do it, like I'm just an average person. Like I really am. I think that anyone can do it. Like I've lost 17 pounds since Christmas. I work 14 or 15-hour days because I choose to spend my time on topics that excite me now, that draw me into them. I know that Tony Robbins said you need to find things that draw you into them, that wake you up in the middle of the night, and that you can't wait to start that task and contribute to them. And if you need to be pushed, if you need to be forced into them, then it's not going to last. Like discipline and motivation will get you so far, but that will fade. And the only thing that will be left is your drive and passion. And if those things are not being lit on fire, then it won't last. So that's my parting message to everyone. If you've stayed until now, I sincerely appreciate it. I'm grateful for your time in listening. You could be doing anything else, and you've chosen to listen to my stupid voice and Dusty. And I really hope that everyone stays tuned because we actually have guests coming on, and it's going to be a crack of people.
Yeah, awesome, man. I appreciate everybody listening, and like Thommo says, like you just have to. We're doing this so people maybe can just see two regular guys that have our regular struggles. We have our up and down days. I had a really tough week, and Tom and I talked before this, and we give advice, and some of it's great, and maybe sometimes you think the things we say aren't what you need, but you know what I mean? Like, we're just regular people trying to figure ourselves out and going through this crazy life as, human beings, and trying to find the people that actually run on our frequencies and help us get better, not worse. And yeah, we do. We appreciate everybody that listens. And like I said, we're not doing this for anything other than just trying to help even one person. So yeah, we really thank you guys, and hope you keep listening. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having some guests to ask questions and pick their brains.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Look after yourself. Stay healthy. Have a good day.
All right. Love you all.